The young man pondered what would happen if he disappeared and entered another world. He thought about how he would start his life surrounded by a depressing work environment, working from morning till night, and feeling his body and heart grow sicker when he went to a restaurant and ordered noodles. He took a plate of noodles and started eating while thinking at the same time. He didn't know why he was alive because he didn't even save money, and now he was at the station, exhausted. He realized that it was difficult for him. Meanwhile, the last train arrived at the station, and the people on the platform started approaching the train. Itsuki Shinomiya was still thinking about parallel universes and what would happen if he reached there. He thought that it had been a long time since he watched anime, thinking about the girls from there and imagining how he could be with them. He wondered if he would become an adventurer or a hero. What would he do while thinking about a job that made him unhappy, not wanting to work, and working excessively? He wanted to have fun, but he couldn't do it when he woke up from his thoughts, or rather from his dream. He saw that he was alone on the platform, and the last train in front of him jumped from its seat. He ran towards the train, which seemed to be waiting for him because it hadn't moved yet. He managed to jump into it and was blown away as he almost missed it. A girl greeted him. She knew his name and was happy to meet him, while the man was just surprised and started staring at her. The girl looked like an anime goddess, smiling and telling Itsuki that she would be sent to another parallel universe. Itsuki thought it was some kind of trick and didn't want to participate. The girl started to ask him to stop, snapping her fingers, and Itsuki began to fall. The goddess wanted to send him to another world where he could start a second life that he desired to give him something before he left, because he would need it there. She wanted to give him a skill. A card appeared in front of Itsuki. He couldn't believe that his second life was about to begin. The goddess gave him a choice and tried to convince Itsuki that it would definitely help him. The main character was thinking about skills and parallel universes. Itsuki Shinomiya reflected that any rough skill like his wouldn't be too good, so he thought about choosing an attacking skill or a skill specialized in battles. The hero reflected that this choice would be wrong, so he chose something completely different. He said that in his second life, he would have fun, and this was the skill he chose. The goddess tried to stop Itsuki from wanting the card, offering a more useful alternative, but he was confident in his choice. He decided to make sure of his choice, and after giving him the fun skill, she asked him to be careful while sending him to the starting city. Opening his eyes, Itsuki found himself in another world. Immediately, he felt something huge behind him. There was a giant caterpillar. Itsuki quickly ran down as the giant caterpillar roared. He realized that the goddess had deceived him, thinking that this was clearly not what he wanted. Itsuki stumbled and fell, but then someone shouted behind him to lie down, and a loud rumbling sound was heard. A giant caterpillar behind him, Itsuki turned to see a man with a sword. The man was worried he might not be able to do it. Help came just in time. He wanted to know who this man was. He in turn asked Itsuki if everything was okay. Itsuki thanked Hayato Hakawa, and Hayato only cared about Itsuki's safety. Hayato introduced himself as a homeless person, drawing a comparison to Itsuki. It turns out Hayato was also reborn in this world. A girl approached them. She turned to Hayato to ask who the next man was. Itsuki introduced himself to the girl, a little embarrassed. There were 4 beautiful girls in front of the men. Itsuki smiled, and the girls started asking Hayato about Itsuki. The man fell into a daze, thinking about his harem with these girls. Hayato interrupted Itsuki's thoughts, telling him they would go to the city. Hayato began talking about Japan, feeling nostalgic. One of the girls asked Hayato about Japan, thinking it was his hometown. Hayato actually asked Itsuki what unique skill the goddess had given him. Itsuki grinned and said everyone would be surprised when he told them. Itsuki reached out his hand and tried to summon pocket money. A coin appeared in his hand. Everyone was very surprised. Itsuki started bragging that he had a fixed income amount once a day depending on his level, and he didn't have to work. Hayato was a little confused and asked Itsuki what he would do next. Itsuki, in turn, kept talking about his skills. He boasted that he could earn as much income as he wanted. Everyone was already confused except Itsuki, who kept telling them what skill the goddess had given him. While the company was discussing what to do next, the city they would head. Hayato suggested that the guild should consider this option of alchemy, and he agreed with the idea they were discussing as they got closer to the city they were passing through along the cart-pulled wagon. Looking out from their wagon, they saw a very beautiful view, welcomed by a tall stone wall and a large city beyond it. People started entering the city with cheers. After getting out of the wagon, Itsuki began walking through the streets, admiring the place. His gaze fell upon two spectacular girls. He happily wondered how he would fit in, feeling comfortable surrounded by people like them. Finally, he came to the conclusion that he would live peacefully and happily because he had no destination in mind. Itsuki realized that his life had finally begun in this world. Near a busy street close to an outdoor restaurant, Itsuki ordered himself a beef kebab. While eating the kebab, he looked at the map that Hayato had given him. Itsuki was searching for the Alchemists' Union. He wondered what would happen there. Itsuki also really liked the beef he was eating. Someone pulled Itsuki's shirt. He turned around and saw a girl with cat ears. Itsuki thought the girl was lost and offered her some barbecue. The cat girl, with her strange outfit barely covering her, had a collar around her neck. A man ran towards them and asked the cat girl to stop. The man told Itsuki that she couldn't be fed without permission because she was a servant. Itsuki was scared and didn't know what to do. He didn't understand how this little girl could already be a servant. The man wanted to know if Itsuki wanted to buy his servant as she was. Itsuki was surprised to find out that Yasis was actually an illegal goods dealer, and his name was Yasis Itsuki. He became serious, and with a rough voice, he shouted that he didn't like it. After that, his words made Itsuki think. Itsuki couldn't imagine that such a thing existed. The girl here was staring at him. Itsuki diverted Yasis's attention with a loud voice about a worm that certainly wasn't there, and it worked. The merchant was disturbed, and Itsuki gave the girl her meat and asked her to eat it quickly. The merchant shouted again and asked her to stop. The girl quickly started eating the kebab, and Itsuki had already run away, saying goodbye and waving his hand. In front of him was a 2-story house, Rose. It was the Alchemist Guild. He stood in front of the door, looking at the building that was worn to be made by Itsuki's guild card. He kept it with him. This time, Itsuki remembered it and decided to enter. Standing at the threshold, he checked the room and made sure there was someone in the house. He came in, closed the door, and apologized, feeling embarrassed. In response, he was told not to be so foolish. An old woman was sitting in front of Itsuki with a pipe. She was not happy with Itsuki's noise because she could hear him perfectly. A woman with the same unhappy face asked what he needed from the Alchemist Guild. Itsuki was afraid, a little sweat of fear appearing on his face. Gathering his thoughts, Itsuki told the woman that he wanted her to join the Alchemist Guild. Itsuki introduced himself and said that he understood. Here, he thanked Hayato, a dissatisfied woman, for remembering Hayato, and said that he might not have brought the recommendation letter that he had heard about Itsuki and knew about his problem with the aristocracy. He said in a low voice that his name started with a flower, and he was confused again. The woman took out a card and handed it to Itsuki. He wanted to take it, but as soon as he reached for it, he felt a heat in his hand. When their two hands touched, a fire broke out. Itsuki screamed when he saw the flames on his hand. A guild card appeared from his hand, and the woman warned him that they didn't take special exams because she had just arrived. Itsuki wasn't ready for this yet, but he happily held the card and finally realized how happy he was in this world. The woman reminded him about the registration fee of 5,000 as well. Itsuki put his hand on the table and asked to be taught. He wanted to learn alchemy. The woman introduced herself to him. Her name was Reincarnate. They exchanged glances, and Itsuki started apologizing and kept asking Reincarnate to teach him alchemy. She also thought that Itsuki had changed her mind about alchemy. She said it was cruel, and she didn't like it when people went back on their words unless their master thought about it. But Itsuki still had alchemy skills, and he decided to give Reincarnate her first lesson. Reincarnate led him down the corridor to see what Itsuki could do. He followed her, and in front of them was a table with a reaction tube, a burner flask, and a grinding mortar. The master asked me to prepare a basic potion. Itsuki was grinding leaves in the mortar. The master gave him instructions without continuous practice. His instant magic would be useless for him. Trying to find out why he had to do it manually and re-enrich, kept saying he needed to learn the basics first. The master looked at Itsuki with a smirk and told him to learn more, behaving as if it would be better to keep the bottle in his hand and use it as an example of how it affects the success rate of a skill. Itsuki was so surprised that he couldn't even open his mouth. Many variations of what was inside the bottle happened in his mind. He awkwardly asked if it was a potion, but the master didn't give him an answer. He started explaining that the basics of alchemy are separation and coagulation, and if Itsuki couldn't understand it, then he wouldn't understand anything further. Itsuki replied that he understood the words, and Reinrich tried to convey that everyone does it, so there was no need to remember his body. Should Itsuki intervene and not let him do it? He understood everything. Itsuki decided to start with separation because it was the foundation of alchemy. He needed ore, but he was in a hurry and understood everything on the table. He carefully tried to do something, and Reinrich watched closely, sweating profusely, as Itsuki worked hard and made the desired potion. He waited for the master's response with a little fear, but the master shook his head negatively. The potion didn't work. The woman gave Itsuki a textbook, and he worked just as hard, trying to figure something out. Confused thoughts filled his mind, and he was starting to feel desperate. Itsuki tried to gather his thoughts and realized that he needed to do more as the night approached. He still puffed up his alchemy textbook and tried to create something. As a result, he came to the conclusion that he couldn't do this anymore. The boy was completely exhausted, unable to catch his breath as he sat on the floor. He simply didn't have the strength to continue. While pondering, he noticed something with a smile. Itsuki had managed to create some good potions. The doors opened and a girl with a basket appeared behind them. Her name was Wright. She was a master's assistant and lived in this house. Reinrich asked Wright to cook something for Itsuki because he was really tired. Itsuki eagerly devoured the freshly cooked food and chewed with pleasure. At first, he didn't pay attention to how he was greeted as the master asked for a break because they needed to talk to him. With his mouth full, Itsuki squinted his eyes to the right and saw a bouquet of flowers with 2 cups of tea. He awkwardly started shaking his head and thanked her. He clearly felt embarrassed as the master sipped his tea and asked him to listen while Itsuki was eating. He realized something as he was practicing. Reinrich sipped it again, staring at me seriously, and then his face changed. He said with a slight smile that he shouldn't be working here. Itsuki was surprised, gaping as the spoon floated towards his mouth in the air, and the employer was shocked with an angry face. However, he still decided to rent some kind of bed for him so that Itsuki could stay. The only thing left was to enrich by setting a price for the accommodation later. The person was surprised, not expecting to pay so much for housing. The woman told him that she would go on a guild adventure tomorrow to sell her potions, because Itsuki was surprised again, as his potions were not good enough to put up for sale. The moon had risen in the sky, the stars shining brightly, and there was still a lot of talk in the guild house. Itsuki was offered a low-class room because it was cheap, and he almost had no money. Therefore, his potions would be sold. Morning arrived, the city slowly waking up, but there was a cry for help. The woman on the street called for help, her luggage stolen. She asked to stop the thief, but he hid in the crowd. People turned, scared upon hearing the scream, and they understood that there was indeed a theft. The thief ran down the street, holding a knife in his hand, shouting at everyone to get out of his way or he would kill them. Those who tried to stop him were met with resistance, but there were 2 girls in front of him. They swung the knife while shouting simultaneously. They got out except for one girl who signaled to the others. She quickly grabbed his arm from behind and easily hit the thief on the shoulder, knocking the bag off his shoulder. He groaned in pain and started coughing. The second girl immediately appeared next to him and without hesitation punched him in the stomach. The man started cursing at them both. The girl grabbed his arm and threw him over her shoulder. The man clearly did not expect this and fell to the ground out of fear. The girl praised her work as extraordinary, but she sighed because she needed to catch her breath. She immediately felt embarrassed. thinking she had overdone it a bit. Reinrich quickly reassured her that the thief was still braiding. People started talking happily as they recognized these girls. The girls handed the bag to the woman from whom it was stolen, and she was very grateful. Reinrich and Itsuki were standing in the alley, wondering what was happening there, because there was a large crowd at the end of the alley, where the master pointed out where he could find the guild adventurer. He pointed straight ahead and said he couldn't stay any longer. They said goodbye and parted ways. Itsuki came to the right place. He never thought he could do business until he came to this world. At night, there was a snoring sound coming from a small room. Itsuki was sleeping while hugging a pillow, while Reinrich and Hayato were talking on the balcony. It seemed that the moon was very bad today, and Hayato remembered it was the same when he came to this world. She held a cup in her hand and sipped it. She wondered what Hayato needed in a situation like this. It was late, but he wanted to give Itsuki something. He brought in a small bag in his hand. He asked me to do it for him, a little help. Hayato just wanted to help her a bit because he was a good guy and just wanted to express it. Thankfully, the man put his bag on the table and waited for his master to take it for himself, but he just asked if he really thought so. So Itsuki stood on the threshold of the guild with the bag in his hand. It contained all the potions she had made, thinking Hayat might wake up for it. He even thought he was shy. The man confidently opened the door of the guild and wanted to start his business as soon as possible. Upon entering the room, he found it crowded and noisy. Different things were happening here. Near each table, someone was fighting, someone was drinking, and someone was discussing something that many people were starting to take an interest in. Itsuki stared at him with curiosity, like a white crow among people who had seen many things. He became awkward. A smile and sweat appeared on his face out of embarrassment. He greeted me a little hesitantly. Itsuki frowned and thought that this was a terrible and somewhat paranoid place. He repeated it, not caring. He felt strange looking at him as he passed by the tables. He had a bad feeling about it. People sitting at the tables whispered to each other, discussing the bag hanging from his belt. People realized that he was from the Love Fellowship. Itsuki noticed a girl standing behind the counter and thought about it. He could help her. She was beautiful and blushed when he asked if she needed anything. Itsuki leaned on the counter with his cheek in his hand. He started to stumble and tried to say what he wanted. Finally, he said he wanted to sell potions, and without saying a word, he grabbed his bag. Itsuki started displaying his potions and filling up the entire shelf with those he wanted to buy as many ores as he could, and asked if it was possible. The people at the table were talking. They saw the potions, and their words were confirmed before the man snorted unhappily. Those expensive potions would be resold after negotiating behind them. Itsuki felt awkward, confused by the heated atmosphere. That's why the girl checked his potions and concluded that all of them were of somewhat poor quality. A man's voice was heard behind Itsuki, who was talking to the girl behind the counter, saying that they both directed their gaze at the man. The man walked towards them and continued the conversation with the girl, smiling, interested in the high-quality potions. Suddenly, the man raised his hand and hit Itsuki on the head, asking if he knew about it. Itsuki didn't expect that, turning in such a way that he touched the potions with his body, starting to fall to the floor. Every potion they had prepared was destroyed, Itsuki almost lying on the counter, looking towards the shards and spilled potions on the floor. Laughter echoed throughout the room, shouting that he deserved it, that he was the man from the Union of Love Spells. They didn't want him to sell his potions here at all. Kitsuki disappeared, thinking he had worked so hard to make them. He thought so quickly and was frustrated with his work on the potions. Why was he from the Guild of Love spelling what these people kept saying? He remembered the words of Master Reinrich that he had already made a good potion. Making someone angry, the person who hit Itsuki swung at him again, calling him names and wanting to know what he would do now. Laughter echoed in the hall as he jumped in anger and attacked him. Itsuki's hand turned towards the man, offering to fight him to prove himself. With a fearful voice, he asked them to stop and not fight here. The man turned to Itsuki and offered to play instead, a smirk on his face and a sword in his hand. He stood ready to fight, angry and worried about what was wrong with the bald man. Itsuki swung his punch, filled with strength and anger as he wanted to destroy everything about himself. A woman's voice was heard and appeared between them, stopping their swords and fists with her arm. Angry, she stared at the man and asked him what he was doing. The man and the others in the room were shocked. He started to stutter a little, so he lowered his saber. Itsuki was also surprised by the appearance of the Red Front girls. It was the first time he had heard of this name. After taking a closer look, he realized how beautiful she was. The man gathered his thoughts and decided to clarify the situation about the recent events. He explained that he was not from the Love Spell Guild, but from the Guild of Alchemists. The people in the room stood in disbelief. Then Itsuki took out his guild card and showed it to everyone, and the man pointed to his bag. The man was amazed by what Aina said. He regretted the misunderstanding and didn't want to cause any trouble for the Itsuki Alchemist Federation. He was serious. He didn't think it was a misunderstanding. He believed that humans should be blamed for not believing him first, and then breaking his potion, like hitting the table with his hand, which surprised the man. He didn't expect it. He thanked Aina for her help and tried to stop her. Then the girl appeared to Itsuki and told him that it wasn't her fault. She decided to compensate by destroying the potion and apologized for embarrassing him. A woman appeared at the door, assessing the situation in the room. Everyone in the room turned and stood there. She angrily asked them to listen to her. Since they destroyed their product, she wouldn't let them go like that. Itsuki was also surprised by the appearance of the guild master. He asked for the guild master and turned towards him. The man he wanted to talk to, Itsuki approached the master and apologized for his potion being destroyed because of him. The master replied that everything was fine and he didn't have to worry so much. He didn't blame him, but blamed the person who did it. But Itsuki believed that he was indeed involved in it too. The master confidently told him not to blame himself. The woman grinned and winked, saying that it wasn't her who did it, and he should tear his hair out. But they and Itsuki think that it's easier said than done to not be sad. Reincarnate said that the Alchemist Fellowship will no longer deal with them, surprising everyone who is a master of the Adventure Guild trying to prevent it, because they don't want to buy potions from the Guild of Love-Spelling Men with swords, starting to justify themselves that he must verify his identity before attacking him, started apologizing too. She just tried to apologize like everyone else except the Lord insisted. He spoke rudely to Aina, and she tried to defend her honor student because she put her whole soul into making her potion. She wouldn't tolerate the antics. She wanted to know what they would do. Now everyone was already scared. Except Reincarnate continued, because there was his letter of recommendation from Hayato. He was sure they knew what it meant. Everyone heard the name of the Dragon Slayer hero. They were just scared. Itsuki wondered in his mind if this was Hayato. He knew he would never do it, thinking he was a celebrity here. The master of the Adventure Guild understands everything, and those causing trouble will be punished, and the man promised to pay 1 million for his potion. Reincarnate isn't sure if she heard everything correctly. She thinks they're wrong because the number mentioned is only 1 unit. She wonders why they have to pay such a huge amount. Itsuki also thinks it's a lot, but the master defends the student's rights. Hayato stands behind Itsuki. He's already tired, but no one understands. Itsuki tries to stop the master because it's unclear who the victim is. Reincarnate tells everyone to keep quiet and tries to exchange thoughts with the master so he'll listen to his student. Then he speaks up, asking them to wait and listen because he realizes it's a huge amount that can't be paid just like that. He thinks he needs to swallow and sort out what he needs to pay. He starts to worry. The red-haired girl wants to become a servant and earn money. Everyone is shocked and asked to re-enrich for the surprising call. Itsuki asks what the man who picked her up means and why he's doing this. He feels burdened because it's his fault. The girl becomes serious and clarifies what she can do. Others say that the reputation of the Adventure Guild will suffer if she becomes a servant. Aina doesn't think so because people need the Adventure Guild, so their reputation won't plummet. She looks at the girl. He doesn't want her to become a servant. He thinks it's all wrong, but Aina says everything is fine and hugs her, reassuring her. Itsuki approaches the girl and asks why she's doing this. The situation has changed somehow. She accepts the answer that it's the girl's decision. She screams that she doesn't want to accept it and tries to calm her down. She fell down, but the girl was not calm and spoke because her friend's potion was destroyed. She had to become a servant again, which she strongly opposed because of what would happen to their adventure. However, the girl could handle it herself, and the cat girl asked who would take care of people if she left the request for leniency to the alchemist. Itsuki wanted to ask for help from her master, but he indicated that he wouldn't do it. Itsuki drowned in thoughts and denied everything because she came here for a happy and carefree life, first encountering a giant insect and then becoming a servant. Should she do it now? Finally, she refused, shocked and curious about the reason. She answered that it would only make things more complicated. Itsuki said she didn't see being a servant as the solution to this situation. Besides, she was safe now, so she couldn't make her savior her servant. She didn't ask for worry if she explained everything to Hayato. He made more potions because he had already said everything was fine. She asked him to wait, but Itsuki said everything was fine. The girl was confident in her powers and didn't want such a beautiful girl to become a servant. The girl was confused by her words, wondering if she, a beautiful girl, was already angry. This surprised Itsuki and enriched her reasons, like the potential girl from the Red Front in the role of a servant, which was intriguing. Itsuki tried to challenge his reasoning, but the master continued to explain why he didn't use him as a worker. Itsuki became sad, but if you want to live and grow here, you need extra strength. That's not what he wanted, and his master couldn't solve this situation anymore. He realized he was too soft. He pointed his finger at Aina and said he would wait for him tomorrow morning. He wanted to see who he could become. Itsuki tried to call her, but she just said, "Come on, everyone else is standing in silence." The night fell. Itsuki was very tired and sank into bed. He would sleep because it had been a tough day. He wasn't sure if he could stay here while humming the song he made. When morning came, he felt the burden on his shoulders, his arms numb, and a fragrant smell. He was scared when he saw Aina in his arms. He screamed and asked what she was doing there. Aina didn't know what to say, but after gathering her thoughts, she said it was Reinrika's task. Itsuki got angry at his master, closed his eyes, and asked her to get dressed. Aina thought there was something wrong with her, not good enough. Itsuki immediately denied her words, and Aina's apologetic head appeared at the bedroom door. She shouted at Aina and did a somersault kick, she kicking Itsuki's face while saying it was just a momentary punishment. Itsuki, with a bloody nose, asked what she was doing. He tried to explain it, but it seemed like she wasn't even giving it a chance. He asked them to calm down at that moment and repeated that it was nice to be young and drink tea together with a bouquet of flowers, smiling. He got lost in memories sent by the goddess of another world and remembered her words that she also had to do her best, remembering the giant caterpillar about the mockery that happened by mistake, and now he had met a girl who tried to be his servant there. Not many people in the room, a company sitting at one of the tables, told him that after eating they would go to the trader. In response, she asked him if he was sure about this. He looked confused, saying he had to determine his value as a servant, calling Itsuki and calling him sir and asking him to take care of her. Itsuki told Aina that he didn't do it like the girl thought. Itsuki didn't like being called sir. The girl started to consider different options on how she could address Itsuki. She suggested calling him sweetheart or darling, and Aina said it was too early to do that. The man started to tell Itsuki that they had a rule saying they would call their husband after the first night. He was angry about a piece of food on his plate with a fork. He was upset and said it wasn't necessary. The girl pointed out firmly that she didn't want her friend to be some kind of servant. Itsuki confidently announced that she would soon repurchase freedom of Aina. The girl screamed and almost cried. It seemed like a little more and she would start having a hysterical fit. The people had left the institution and were walking along the road. Itsuki asked her if she really wanted to buy Aina back. She said she was definitely ready to buy her. Friend Aina looked towards her and said she couldn't do this because her sincerity wouldn't be conveyed. Itsuki interrupted the girl's dialogue and said with displeasure that she still needed the money. Sorte was very angry and looked at the man who was asking. His expression changed to sadness. Her friend said she was glad people like him worried about her, but she wouldn't change her mind. The girl said she would go with him right now. Itsuki was confused, wondering why she was so stubborn. Suddenly, she turned towards Itsuki, pointing at him, saying she would go with him so he wouldn't endanger her friends. They continued walking through the city streets. Itsuki asked if she still wanted to go meet the merchant's servant. The girl told him she hadn't changed her mind yet, but still called him my lord. Itsuki walked and wondered why she kept calling him that. The girl seemed quite nice to her. She felt sorry for her, and she also didn't understand what she was trying to achieve by doing this. 4 men were sitting at the Adventurers Guild headquarters, discussing something. The men looked confused and sad. An unsatisfied fare approached them and asked what they were doing. He asked this question because the men had been gloomy since morning. One of the men wanted him to say something about Aina, but then he took a deep break because he was sad. He turned to this man and said that he could understand his feelings, but the fact that they thought about it all day wouldn't help since Aina left them in this place. After these words, the girl became teary-eyed, and she asked the man what he could do for him. The man looked at her sadly but also with enthusiasm, and then the men began to support the girl. They started saying that they were truly sorry for their mistakes, and now they had to work hard. They decided to go to work immediately, considering that there were many requests that day. Master Reinrich approached the Adventurer Guild headquarters at that moment. He turned around as if he had heard something. He met a man he knew who told him that it had been a long time since he last did it, going to the weapon shop. The master began asking about his life, and he answered that he was okay. The man told him that he had heard that he had a new student and asked if it was true. Reinrich told him it was indeed true. In response, the man said it was good and asked if he was a good learner. The girls approached the place, heading towards Itsuki. They said it was quite an interesting place. The man was surprised to see how beautiful the house was. They found themselves in front of a 2-story building that looked magnificent, resembling some sort of palace. Itsuki told the girls that he had been thinking about this. The house belonged to a nobleman, but it turned out to be a merchant's assistant's house. The young man admired its beauty. He knocked and entered the mansion. A beautiful girl was unexpectedly inside, inviting him in and apologizing for making him wait. The girl looked so beautiful that she seemed like a true princess from the palace. Itsuki assumed that she must be from there, enriching the atmosphere. She invited him to follow her. Itsuki was mesmerized by her beauty. She was extraordinary on the outside, but even more amazing on the inside. They settled on a sofa in the large office of the merchant company, and then a man he already knew came in. He was friendly and apologized for being late. The man started talking about what he had heard about Itsuki from Reinrich, and then thanked him for choosing their company. Itsuki's company informed the man that he seemed to have seen her a few days ago. The man introduced himself as Lord Yasis. The girl who met Itsuki at the entrance of the house brought him hot tea. Itsuki thanked the girl shyly. Itsuki became restless, thinking about it. Aina was very beautiful, but she didn't want the sweet girl to become his servant. Yasis glanced at her and started teasing her. Yasis smiled slightly and asked the man if he liked the girl he had met, and Itsuki blushed. Then the man felt embarrassed. He said not to pay attention to him. The owner of the mansion introduced him to the girl named Wendy. He thought that the world was mocking him. He didn't understand how this girl could become a servant. The man felt very embarrassed and uncomfortable, even hurt. It was like asking for a favor to speed up the process. They looked at him in disbelief and tried to calm him down. The merchant told the girls that he would do it now and evaluate their values as servants. Reluctantly, the man agreed. He was angry, and Yasis, who was scared, started checking the girls. They said that they were in good condition. He was very surprised when he found out that both of these girls came from Redfront. Suddenly, he exclaimed that he didn't understand why he was also like that. Yasis thought and started explaining everything he heard, the details, Reinrich, and the amount of money. It was quite a lot. Even a big Aina wouldn't be enough to cover it. The merchant continued to explain that if Aina served and worked alone, it would be very difficult for her. Sorting things out would lighten her burden. He said that he understood everything about her. He was very sad and also very angry at his friend for shedding tears. But she seemed resigned. She told Aina that everything was fine and asked if they would always be together. She didn't need an answer from Aina. Proudly, she stood up from her seat and said that she agreed to become a servant. And then Wendy invited them to join the ceremony, saying that she would inform Itsuki about the servant. Now the man started listening to the merchant telling me that there were several types of servant employees bought and sold for economic reasons. Some servants were guilty of crimes and forced to become servants, and there were also special servants who served the royal or had special reasons. In this case, maybe they were servant debtors. Itsuki listened attentively and understood everything. Wendy announced loudly that the evaluation would begin now. First, she asked if they were strong in battle because the girls were known as adventurers. Wendy asked if they could cook, and the girls said they only cooked when they were traveling. Wendy asked if they had any experience in household management, and the girls didn't wait for their answer. Understanding without words, she smiled sweetly at them and told them to take off their clothes and such. They were surprised and uncomfortable, but nevertheless, they obediently continued to do what they had to do at that moment. The girls felt embarrassed. They took off their clothes, leaving only their underwear. Wendy approached them and told them to check her. It turned out that Wendy appeared behind Aina and hugged her, making her feel embarrassed like this. She immediately apologized to her with a sweet voice. She was confused by Wendy's unexpected actions. Wendy explained to her that there were different types of servants, but if her master demanded it, she had to do it. The ability to please your master meant high appreciation for everyone at that moment. A sword appeared from behind and pushed Wendy behind. The girl wanted to stop everything. He shouted and pleaded for it. Yes, he had told Itsuki about the contract with the servants all this time. The man listened attentively and remembered everything. Then Wendy knocked on their door and apologized for making them wait so long. She brought the girls to the man's office and said that their evaluation was ready. She thanked them for their patience and such. It seemed very sad, immediately noticing this, and asked what had happened to them. In response, he questioned the unhappy person and asked not to ask his questions. Itsuki didn't understand why he couldn't ask and asked what the reason was. He responded by attacking her, shouting and reminding her that she had been asked not to ask any questions. But Itsuki still didn't understand what was happening, confused. Yasis began to examine the papers containing the evaluation of the girls, confused when she saw Yasis while announcing the results. He can see how worried the girl is. Then the merchant started announcing the results of the second girl, somewhat annoyed and unhappy. Yasis told Itsuki that both girls were ready to fight, but they couldn't do household chores. The merchant said that Aina's result was suitable, and explained if one of the results was actually negative. Wendy confirmed this, and started talking about her. She said that the girl was an adult from the werewolf tribe, but still felt somewhat backward. She didn't like that fact. Wendy said that, in her opinion, it was none of their business. Wendy then started talking about how the assessment of the sexual relationship was done. The girl was really confused. She didn't know where to place herself. Wendy's words on how to react to the assessment explained that it would be difficult. Yasis's partner calmly listened to the girl, and at that moment, Itsuki was surprised at herself that she turned out to be a wolf, because she thought she was more like a dog. Wendy announced that according to her, the assessment results amounted to compensation for the respected client, which had now reached the goal cost of 6 million burros and sorted 4 million burros. Yasis suggested that we start the contract ceremony as soon as possible. She invited everyone to enter the circle and fold their hands. The people obediently agreed and did everything as she asked. When she asked the people to fold their hands and asked the trader if they had done everything correctly, Yasis replied that everything was correct. She then suggested starting the drawing. They stood in the back, their hands glowing, and then a symbol appeared on the palm of their hand. Wondering if the ceremony was over, Yasis said it was done. The contract had been successfully concluded. The trader's palm also glowed, starting to tell me that the contract was strong because it bound the relationship with the help of skill. Yasis continued to say that, at the same time, the contract did not allow the servant to harm the master and hold a grudge against him. Itsuki was surprised by this. She didn't believe it. She turned to sort things out and asked him to check before she could swing her spear towards Itsuki. She suddenly felt unwell, aching all over. She couldn't hurt Itsuki like this. She fell to the floor and clutched her head. Yasis explained that if a girl tried to hurt him, they would experience severe headaches. Itsuki didn't expect this and felt embarrassed. The front of the girl's clothes began to stand out, and Itsuki asked her if she was okay. Itsuki told her about it, then learned a lesson that he would reconsider his behavior. He immediately depended on brute force, calling her a dog girl in a threatening tone. She shouted that she was not a dog but a wolf. He laughed when he saw them sorting things out, and Itsuki turned to him, staring at him in surprise. She apologized and said they were both having fun. Itsuki and the others were annoyed and shouted in unison that they were not having fun. Yasis repeated that this was the end of the contract. He thanked them and told them to leave. They left the house wondering what to do next. She approached Itsuki and asked him to meet the Adventure Guild to report. The man thought about it. It was already night outside, and he was looking at the starry sky. The girls were sitting near the campfire where food was being prepared. One of them said that Hayato had not returned yet. The second cat girl was surprised by Hayato's lateness. She reported that she was hungry and wanted to eat meat. The first cat girl said that for meat, she had to be patient for the next town. The cat girl was annoyed about it and remembered that there was dried meat. She said she would put it in the soup as instructed by another girl. She told her not to do it because it was for rainy days and asked her not to do it. The third girl approached them in her underwear. The first girl asked what she was doing, calling her. She didn't understand why the girl was so surprised. The girl told her that Hayato was here and it wasn't appropriate to visit without clothes. She said she didn't care. She didn't care why an elf like she behaved like that. Hayato hadn't returned yet, but she told him that Chris went there, so she called him. She told her friend Letty that she smelled something and suggested that she choose swimming because Hayato might not like it, making her face feel very uncomfortable and blush. It was already night outside, and an owl was sitting on a tree branch, observing a sad man sitting alone on a rock in the middle of the forest. Hayato looked at his palm with longing, and tears welled up in his eyes. Suddenly, a man approached him from behind and placed a blanket on his shoulder. Hayato was scared by this unexpected action. He said that a gentle breeze had blown and his body would freeze. He turned around to see who the person was, and if he saw Chris in front of him, he would be happy. When he saw her and thanked her, Chris was confused. Something they started seeing together, the beautiful mountains in front of them, confused him. Hayato mentioned Itsuki, hoping he was okay. Everyone in the Adventure Guild was having fun. A man approached Itsuki and kindly embraced his shoulder. He told him that they did a good job today and treated him as a response. Itsuki said he was ready to pay for himself. The members of the fellowship stood in front of him and bowed slightly, apologizing to him. Itsuki said he expected to receive an apology soon as a response. The man said that they had shown their differences, and they should all do their best. Everyone sat at the table and continued the conversation. The man said that if Itsuki couldn't forgive them, they were ready to be beaten by him. The man's response was a different world. He had many things like that situation. The man admitted it to him. He was a good person who was now relied upon by Itsuki, and the building expected potions prepared by the alchemist to arrive suddenly. The man turned around and shouted at Itsuki that it was true only because of the contract. It seemed like he could do anything with his own belongings. He said not to be arrogant. Itsuki didn't like the way he spoke to her at all. She compared him to an annoying boss at the company where she used to work. Aina felt embarrassed for her friend. She looked down and explained that the man had also had a little too much to drink. Suddenly, he started crying and rushed into Aina's arms. It is said that it would not be comfortable for Itsuki to think that he will undoubtedly do many things that he got very angry because of Itsuki's words. He started talking about how he was not satisfied with Itsuki's words because he had just insulted his appearance. It seems like he will explode with anger. He ordered Itsuki to apologize to him. Itsuki said he would not do anything with girls as servants, not believing him and assuming that he was just like Itsuki. Suddenly, Itsuki became angry about this matter. He said that he was tired of this kind of relationship between the top and bottom and asked not to say unreasonable things. Surprised by the answer, the people called Itsuki to join them again. The man agreed and went to them. The girls were left somewhat alone, still frowning after talking to Itsuki. She told Aina not to get carried away with this, and as a response, Aina just agreed with this, taking a few more sips from her cup, putting her head on the table, and telling Aina that she easily does this. Meanwhile, Itsuki and the men continued to have fun and calm their minds about the strange words, and confirmed it. He looked mysteriously towards Itsuki and continued to contemplate it. One of the men approached Itsuki and said that he had made a similar luxury. At that moment, he asked if everything was okay with the payment. Itsuki replied that they didn't need to worry and would now demonstrate his skills to them. Itsuki suddenly raised his hand. A coin flew out of his palm. He caught it and proudly showed it to everyone. The men were very impressed by this, proudly showing the coin to everyone and telling them to drink. The man climbed onto the table and continued to boast about his skills, laughing loudly. At the same time, one of the men said that Itsuki had another silver coin. Surprised by this, he was alone. The men asked how many coins Itsuki had now. Older, they asked if it was possible to pay them in their expenses. They confused the men with everything that happened. Itsuki was still having fun at the Adventure Guild headquarters. The men fell asleep right there at the table. Itsuki also almost fell asleep, but then his mind wandered, thinking about how one day in another world, he would meet a different company. Thinking about the big commotion that happened, he thought that his second life wasn't too bad. His measured life started from here. Itsuki remembered everything, the people he met on his journey, his rebirth. He didn't understand how he died. He was currently thinking about the fact that, for several reasons, he started his second life. He knocked on the door of the Adventure Guild headquarters and greeted everyone there, saying that he came from the Alchemist Federation. The people turned and looked at him, greeting him and asking if he had delivered the potion. He justified this and then disagreed, saying that they were drinking again. The man explained that there hasn't been a big demand lately, but there are definitely some for the Red Front. He saw the man and wondered if he was thinking about it again because for some reason he now has a servant from the Red Front. A woman adventurer with extraordinary skills. He remembered how she said she would become his servant and earn money, and how much he hated that reality because some of his potions were ruined to become a servant. How to become a servant. Help him gather ingredients for their alchemy. They were both busy working as adventurers and helping each other. He remembered how angry he was at her, saying that he would soon repay his debt, and then diligently studying alchemy, as making potions and accessories that he could now make healing potions up to an average level. He remembered that level increased normally. The job was also done in his own way, so he wasn't worried or rushed, slowly developing. In the morning, he started thinking about what he should do today, then raised his hand and recited his pocket money mantra. He thought it was his unique pocket money skill. Now that he has leveled up, it has become a second level, a receipt for 10 times more than the initial amount. He started receiving a gold coin, reflecting that if someone's pocket could afford it, he would only do one thing. Itsuki was inspired by what he planned to do today, thinking that way when he came to another world he wanted to spend his time, but he worked tirelessly, seeing Reinrich's face in the darkness of the alchemy room. He remembered how he made it. He worked hard. He thought about how tired he was. He reflected that he still did it, not knowing this Enel city. Itsuki used to run in the streets of the city. He was in a very good mood, shouting to warn everyone to wait for the entertainment, saying he would do it. Itsuki took a hot dog that seemed tempting, sat on a bench, and offered to think about adding his power first. Upon careful consideration, he didn't know the area at all except for the way he came and went to work. While Itsuki was eating, he thought about the fact that it was uncomfortable without a city map and wondered where he could buy one. Itsuki saw Yasus and Wendy in front of him. The man immediately recognized his client and greeted him. Yasus turned to Itsuki and asked if he was walking in the morning. The man said he had a day off today and wanted to let him know that he would go to arrange the entertainment but changed his mind. Instead, he went out to do some shopping but was not familiar with the city. The merchant listened to the man and told him that Wendy could show him the city. Itsuki did not expect such an offer. Itsuki had just arrived in their town not too long ago and had various concerns. The merchant asked Itsuki if he wanted to relieve his daily fatigue with Wendy today. The girl noticed the strangeness in Itsuki's reaction and thought that he was not satisfied with her. She was confused because she couldn't even dream of such a thing. Something she began shaking her head and denying Wendy's words that she was referring to Itsuki and said that she should take care of her. Itsuki happily agreed. They went to the clothing store and the man started picking out clothes first of all. Itsuki tried on a beautiful tailcoat and asked if it was too bright. Wendy disagreed with him and said it was perfect for her. The girl realized that Itsuki was not impressed with this outfit and suggested that he choose other things he liked. The man agreed. A girl approached the men from behind and called them. Wendy turned around and looked at her questioningly. Itsuki called Wendy and said that he had done it. He was offered clothes that looked amazing on the girl in her new outfit. The girl who approached them asked Itsuki if he wanted to buy this outfit for Wendy. Wendy was waiting for the man's answer, but he looked at her, surprised by her beauty. He turned to Seller and told her to wrap up the clothes that the girl had mentioned. She reminded him that Itsuki also had to do it. Wendy felt very embarrassed. He apologized to Itsuki for having to buy clothes for her as well, but he was just too excited to buy her new clothes. After all, her clothes were sold at a discount price. Wendy thanked Itsuki and promised to handle her gift carefully. The girl said it was her turn now. The man didn't do it immediately, understanding who he was talking about. Wendy began to explain that today she wanted to present Itsuki with many things. That's how she received the command from Itsuki, and Wendy went to a cafe, where they were drinking tea and discussing something. The man was thinking about the fact that this was a measured life, like he wanted to come to another world. He was so sincere that he felt relieved and happy. Itsuki and Wendy left the place holding hands and walking down the street from the city. Suddenly, a man called the girl and stared at her angrily. Itsuki didn't recognize the man and asked Wendy if she knew him. Wendy recognized him and wanted to introduce him to Itsuki. The man started yelling at the girl, asking who she was doing in a place like that, and then asked Itsuki what she was doing. Itsuki began to explain to the man that Wendy showed him the city. The man became very angry, asking Itsuki if he bought Wendy, and said that he would buy the girl back. The man started telling Itsuki that Wendy didn't need a poor man like him, as he ordered her to stay away. Itsuki didn't like it. He turned to Wendy and asked who that person was. The girl answered that his name was Dadaril. He was the son of an influential man. The man continued to be angry, asking Itsuki who he was saying he would gather 120 million nar to buy her. Wendy went out and asked if Itsuki had that kind of money. She shouted at the common people as if Itsuki didn't have the right to respond. Wendy approached Itsuki and told him not to care about what he said. He hugged Wendy confidently and said that he would protect her. Aina and Sorta walked along the forest path and discussed that they had harvested the crops today. Itsuki said that he was annoyed because even though they collected a lot, they still took everything for themselves. Itsuki answered that there was nothing to be done about it, and said that if they didn't gather the necessary materials, it would disrupt Itsuki's work. Itsuki replied that he didn't mind if he didn't work right now. Somewhere beneath his nose, he stretched out his hand confidently and shouted at the woman that he used to be Wendy's master, but now he was very angry. He didn't believe Wendy and she ran into Itsuki's arms and suddenly started apologizing to him. Wendy backed away from him, scared, and asked if she had pushed him too hard. Itsuki continued to shout aggressively, repeating that she had no right to do that, touching Wendy and thinking that it was Itsuki against her. He was surprised at Itsuki's reaction, and when he repeated it once again, he didn't care, because he was already used to people like that. Dadaro shouted that Itsuki would regret not obeying him and he would never forgive him. Dadaro said he wouldn't give Wendy to anyone. Itsuki replied that he wouldn't give Wendy to a man like him. There was a lot of tension between the men. When suddenly Wendy turned to Itsuki, Itsuki looked around and stared at Wendy with a lot of question marks. He asked if he would buy her. Itsuki didn't expect a question like that. He looked at them accusingly, when suddenly a man who recognized it, and then he approached them. In front of them stood Yasis, who also recognized Itsuki and was happy to see him. He asked for an explanation. Yasis asked Dadaro if he was ready to buy Wendy for 120 million. He wasn't ready for that question, and without answering, he asked who Itsuki was. He also asked why Wendy was with Itsuki. He thought the man had already bought her. Dadaro said he would still buy Wendy. It was pointless to let Itsuki get close to the girl. Yasis reluctantly agreed, and then turned his gaze to Itsuki. Yasis suggested that they compete against each other to determine who would get Wendy. Itsuki was surprised by the merchant's suggestion. The girls came to the alchemist's headquarters and were greeted by Reincarnate, the master. He asked how they were doing. The girls were in the middle of asking when Itsuki was now, and he answered that Itsuki had locked himself behind some kind of room, kicking the door open and warning them that they would come. Aina, friend of the girls, entered Itsuki's room and said they had brought some materials. The tired man expressed his gratitude to them, suddenly realizing something about his own belongings, like a table. It caught their attention to the jewelry made by Itsuki. She was surprised by the number of them, and they asked Itsuki why he needed so many types of admired jewelry. Itsuki began explaining everything, taking a deep breath and starting to shout at Itsuki. The man and a woman were scared by how loud Itsuki asked her not to do it, shouting so loudly, but she continued. She said that Dadaro's father was one of the most influential people in the city, and there was no way to argue with him. Itsuki was called reckless because he only acted under the influence of those people. They continued to argue and then turned to them and told them to stop shouting, explaining that Itsuki did it to save the woman. She answered that Itsuki was doing this because Wendy was the most beautiful woman among the servants. She started apologizing for Itsuki's statement, saying that he said it without malicious intent. She said that he and others had agreed to show Itsuki the city soon, but they were in front of them. Itsuki was surprised by something like this and said that it wasn't the point. Itsuki apologized to the girl and wanted to hug him, but she hugged him instead, turning to Itsuki and asking what the competition was really about. The man answered that it was necessary to raise money. He started talking about his plan on how he planned to get 80 million in a short time. She was surprised when he heard the mentioned amount. She didn't understand how Wendy could be worth 30 times more than him, getting angry and attacking Itsuki. Itsuki's friends intervened and asked the girls to gather materials for accessories for him. Aina and Sorta agreed to help him and said they would accompany Itsuki in their free time. Itsuki asked if his opponent was strong, thinking about it and answering that all kinds of bad rumors about this person wouldn't disappear. Itsuki said that this time she relied on the girls and would sell wholesale potions to the Adventure Guild. Aina didn't believe that he was willing to sell potions in difficult times like this. Itsuki replied that there was indeed a promise. The girl said he was very kind. The girls would go secretly, unable to stay calm. She said she would go hunting and gathering, hoping for a safe journey. Wendy was sitting in the room thinking about something she remembered. Itsuki told her not to agree to the competition. She didn't understand why she was so worried. She said everything would be fine, and patted her head. They heard a knock on Wendy's door and asked if they could come in. Yasis was already standing in front of her. He asked how the girl was feeling. Wendy replied that there was no reason to be nice. She didn't understand why she proposed such a competition. He said that he wanted to apologize for using her, but the current situation would be a good outcome for them. Wendy was sitting on the bed talking to him. Currently, the situation is suitable for the right direction, so he asked not to worry. The girl seems a little angry, and Yasis wants to sell it at a high price. The price for Mr. Didarel, however, he is a special servant and has the privilege of choosing his own teacher. According to him, with the help of this competition, he will convince him to give up the privilege. This makes he wonder if he has fun today. Wendy remembers Itsuki's face and emphasizes her hand on her chest, saying that she had a very enjoyable time. He said she had to do everything to make this happiness a reality. In fact, she jumped and asked loudly why she proposed such a competition. He was amazed at how 80 million holes could be collected in 1 week. Yasis gave in and thought so. Wendy thought it was impossible for her. She immediately convinced him that this client was not someone who would easily leave. Mitsuki sat at the table and continued to make good case phrases. It was a good situation for them, and he held a hammer in his hand. He sighed and felt his arm go numb. Reinrich entered the room and offered to take a break because if he studied too long, the work would become sloppy. Master Drew noticed the jewelry and took note of it. He made many of them, so he assumed. He wanted to open an accessory shop. He sat at the table with a cup of tea and treats. He continued to hear the general story of Itsuki from the girl. Itsuki looked towards the master because at first he thought the young man could be reckless, but he always conflicted with someone. He took a sip of tea and reluctantly justified those words, showing that he was indeed no longer so young. Reinrich cut him off, asking him to be quiet because he saw only a whole child appearing at the table, and asked if he needed more Atsuki. He thanked him and kept talking to his master, needing his advice. He reflected on the fact that there was an income limit only on accessories, and apologized for expressing his opinion that he did not want to sell potions through the Alchemist Guild. Enriching himself again, he thought about his words, thinking it was impossible, but his master's words didn't mean that. He asked if he knew what the old man was selling. Itsuki became interested, thinking it was a pig farm. The woman said he only looked like that and he shouldn't interfere in the story because these pigs were the head of the Pharmaceutical Federation. Itsuki had an epiphany and realized this. The teacher said he would intervene if he tried to make money from the potions. The man slapped himself in the face, realizing the desperation of the situation, but Reinrich thought it would be good for business to develop beyond potions. Itsuki thought about it, took his card, and tried to contact Hayato. The man succeeded in doing this, and Hayato said they hadn't talked in a long time. The monster was advancing on their team, and he asked how to help. He just wanted to ask me something that Letty and Chris, who were sitting behind the rock, shouted to Hayato that the monster was coming. Itsuki wants to make sure it's comfortable to talk to Hayato. He doesn't see any problem, even though a big bird is flying high above his head. His team rushes into battle, and Itsuki asks about the bag he gave him. He wonders if he can use it. The girls fight the monsters in various ways. Chris is skilled in magic, and the cat girl is great with a sword. The bird flies towards Lei, and she orders everyone to move aside. Hey, she doesn't mind him using the contents of the bag. He can use any bird he wants. Hayato continues discussing things from the bag, warning him that he won't be able to use some of the things in it because of Itsuki's level. Itsuki warns him that he will figure it out somehow, surprising Hayato. He's amazed that he can succeed in such a short time. The man says to do his best, and this time he will bring the ore obtained in the underground room. Hayato runs towards the bird and stabs the monster with his sword as if he flew past it. A bird screams, and it's as if a hole has been drilled through it. Hayato awaits the results of Itsuki, which he didn't believe at first, but Itsuki confirms it. He says goodbye and realizes that the guild card is convenient because you can talk to registered opponents wherever you are. It feels like a cell phone, and he sits back at the table, stretching because of tiredness. He continues working while the girls chase after a wild boar and try to catch it calmly, trying to figure out if they are nearby. He also shows that they have enough materials and they can slowly return the approved sword. This effort helps him relieve stress. They say that the guy won't have any problem making accessories in the near future, and it would be better if he could create better things than pouring boiling water from a kettle into a cup and thinking that the wolf wasn't that bad. The girl took the cup and said she didn't like people like him, then drank its contents. She was surprised and curious to know if it was true to judge people like that and just attack someone's feelings. It was an irregular feeling, but you could also say that it wasn't that bad. In other words, you start to not understand what you think is believed, that all men who like big shapes are useless until he decides to rush back and improve his work. Itsuki's place where the girls came, the Alchemist Guild, and saw Itsuki holding Reinrich and Reit. They wondered what was happening, and Itsuki shouted for nothing and let them enrich themselves, reassuring the girls that nothing special had happened. He was just a little tired, so they would comfort him. Itsuki screamed and thought it was something dangerous. The skull must be there for a reason. The girl surrounded him and started holding his hand and leaning her spear against Itsuki's neck. Now they just needed to surrender the potion to him, open his master's mouth, and start bringing the potion that he refused. But a drop had already fallen on his tongue. He kept saying that he wouldn't drink something dangerous and decided to pretend that he had swallowed it and then spat it out. Reinrich punched Itsuki in the stomach to make sure he swallowed the potion. That's what happened. His eyes trembled, and he fainted. The guy slowly opened his eyes. A woman's voice asked if she was awake. Itsuki suddenly realized that someone's knees were under her head. The girl gave her water and asked her to drink slowly. Itsuki thought it belonged to Inamez, who at that moment asked if she could get up. She wanted to lie down a little longer, and the girl started to slow down. She went down so that she could get up. Itsuki looked and realized that the knees belonged to someone who was currently talking. She told him to get up quickly. Itsuki jumped and stumbled, asking which one. She answered that she had no choice. She immediately mentioned someone's name and somewhat unhappily called him stupid. The man began to say that his body hurt and he was hungry. He saw that the man had woken up and apologized for the recent incident. The three of them were sitting at the table, and Itsuki greedily ate his meat and all the contents of the plate. The girls looked at him a little surprised. After eating enough, he rubbed his stomach while smiling. After being drugged with dangerous medicine, he began to make accessories with an extraordinary heart push, even though he didn't remember. He enriched himself by re-evaluating the accessories, and the total amount turned out to be 40 million holes. Itsuki thought about it because there were still 5 days left until the competition day, and there were still 36 million holes left. The materials were running out, and there wasn't much time left. He really needed to produce something that could change everything in one fell swoop. He knocked, and an idea came to him that day. The man was holding a bouquet of crystal quartz roses in his hand, and when he looked at the stone, it emitted vibrations when applying magical power. A revelation came down to the man named Mitsuki Shinya, just a simple employee in that company. His trial began in another world. Furthermore, it's really difficult for him to create a form based on this printed film memory multiple times in the past. The fact that some fail and some don't show the intended function, they stop working. He puts the tools on the table and excitedly shouts that he has done it. He extends his hand and reaches for a pink rotor, that's what he calls it. The girls don't understand what it is, but he wickedly wants to explain what it is. But I can't. He turns around and tells them to look at it, and the girls assume it's some kind of massage tool suggested to try it because he recently said his shoulder hurts. The girl agrees to try it and asks Itsuki to take care of her. He nods and remembers the mechanism of the device he sat on, a waiting chair, and Itsuki starts after finishing the offered massage to try this variation while asking if she feels okay. The wolf girl asks suspiciously if this is how it's used. Itsuki is afraid she won't like it, being a smart dog, and approaches her, whispering in her ear how to use it. She blushes and turns around, saying that's how it is, and switches to Aina, saying they still have to get rid of it. The girl quickly grabs it and asks what's happening and what the problem is. She wonders what's wrong with this type of instrument and doesn't want to talk, asking to be released. That's when Itsuki decides to leave. After a while, he went out, checked his instruments, and was happy because the hastily made instruments worked well. Itsuki thought that there should be a store like that here too, and he would be able to get a lot without competition. After looking at the instruments again, he remembered Wendy and asked her to wait a little. He was walking down the street, thinking about how to sell them, but he met a man on the way. They exchanged glances, One of the men stumbled, and Itsuki flew into a rage. As he fell to the ground, he heard laughter and conversation behind him. The man put on a face and said his leg was broken, while the other said that he should pay. The man approached Itsuki, who lied and said he had to pay 2 million as an apology, and he would forgive him. The man said it was too much and offered a potion. The man asked if Dodaro sent him. The man was amused by this and asked for the name again, saying he didn't do things like that. Knowing this, Itsuki jumped up, stood up, and ran down, being insulted by the people who shouted at him to stop. The man decided to divert his attention, claiming to be a robber and pointing his finger to the sky, saying that gold coins fell from the sky. Those people didn't believe him at first, but when the coin fell from the sky, they took it. Itsuki was happy that he didn't have to use his skills today, but the man didn't want to let go and threw a dagger towards him. The man turned around and saw the dagger flying towards him. Suddenly, a girl appeared, kicking her sword. Itsuki fell down again. As he turned around, he saw a cat girl who only said one word. When Itsuki visited, he was taken aback to see that the girl who had saved him was Shiro. Memories of their first encounter in their hometown flooded back as they sat in a restaurant, discussing their usual encounters and favorite foods. Itsuki asked Shiro to reveal the name of the girl who had been enjoying a sausage bun, and she introduced herself as Shiro. Standing before Itsuki on the rocks, she declared herself to be her master's weapon, and warned that anyone who dared to approach her master would meet their demise. The men, without uttering a single threat, immediately accepted her warning, knowing that they wouldn't let her escape even if she cried. One of the men made a swing, but Shiro effortlessly evaded him, remarking on his slowness. She swiftly drew her sword, ready to launch an attack, when Itsuki tried to intervene and stop her. Longingly, she gazed at him, but ultimately proceeded with her plan. Suddenly, the man revealed a sword hidden in his stomach. He collapsed to the ground, and in that moment, Shiro executed a somersault and with a powerful karate shout, swiftly dealt with the remaining foes, declaring that she had indeed finished them off. Itsuki was surprised by her strength. He thanked her, a little confused, asking her for help. She said that Yasis had told her that she was a guard, and Shiro would protect her owner. Itsuki asked to be taken to her master. Shiro exclaimed in surprise that he was still silent. The boss was confused again and asked him to take him to meet Yasis. The girl asked again and asked in confusion if he would buy Shiro. Imed immediately got angry when he heard that it wouldn't work now, but nevertheless, he wanted to rely on him. Itsuki wanted to thank him and had a little conversation with Yasis. Shiro turned around and said they could go. He ran, and Itsuki chased after him, asking him to slow down a bit because he couldn't keep up. He offered to hold his hand, and Shiro asked him not to treat him like a child as they walked. Shiro hummed a song as they approached the house. The man came out and asked what was happening late at night. Itsuki wanted to thank him for the incident with Shiro. Shiro lied with his head on Itsuki's lap, and he took his turn to notice that he was very friendly, and luckily, he wanted to show him something. He took out his rotor and showed it to Yasis, who didn't understand what he wanted to do with it. Itsuki said that he wanted to trade it if possible. The man thought he wanted to buy it back and asked how much. Itsuki raised 4 fingers and named the price of 4 million. Yasis grinned and said that at most it was around 100,000 and thought they were selling too much. Once again, Itsuki was confident and wanted to do it, making a presentation. The person placed the device on the table and said that they didn't want to buy this item. They didn't even want to understand what they meant. Itsuki continued enthusiastically and said that they wanted to buy their rights. They looked at each other, and Yasis continued by saying that they wanted to sell this pink rotor as a massage product in Itsuki's store. Itsuki confirmed it, and Yasis was interested in the product, finding it appealing. Besides, he had influence in the store. Itsuki was very happy and wanted to continue, but the man stopped. He asked for specific content in the contract. Itsuki started explaining that he wanted Yasis to buy the exclusive rights to the rotor for 40 million. He would make and sell it in large quantities. The price of the sales was up to the man's discretion, but if the product was to be sold, Itsuki asked for 50,000 per piece. After proposing the contract, he waited for a response from Yasis. The man didn't want to accept the offer because there was no guarantee of reimbursement. He couldn't afford to pay 40 million for an empty license. He also mentioned that there might be demand for this product, but there was no reason why Itsuki would be able to continue providing it. Itsuki immediately started saying that he could do regular deliveries and the materials would be collected by A, and someone like Yasis agreed that if the girl collected the materials, there would definitely be no problem. But there was one thing. The man had just arrived in town like a homeless person with no home of his own, and it was unknown when he would leave the city. Itsuki agreed to those words because of the offer from the guy with whom they almost didn't know it wasn't credible. Yasis approved it, and in this case Itsuki continued, giving his body as a guarantee that he would become the man's servant. The man was surprised, and so was Shiro. Yasis didn't understand why he went so far because he didn't need to say that it was something he himself knew the answer to. The man laughed and found Itsuki an interesting person. The man, in turn, was already eager to sign the contract, but Yasis said that it wouldn't happen no matter what. She wanted permanent rights to the pink rotor. It didn't make sense to say that it was only for the contract period. Itsuki was already in a hurry to get the money and end the conversation, but Yasis continued, saying that if there was betrayal, don't expect leniency and punishment. The man asked if she was willing to accept the conditions. Itsuki agreed, fearing Yasis was already willing to settle for 40 million. But Itsuki was worried about another question about Shiro after leaving Yasis's house. His sun had risen in the sky. Itsuki noticed this, and since then, he only made 10 tools. He was very skilled. Shiro, tired, turned to the man who had fallen asleep on the move. Itsuki said he would sleep in the guild where he lifted her. Shiro apologized because they asked him to take care of her. She would protect the owner who agreed with her. Meanwhile, in another place, the man shouted at the people who violated a plate at the same time they couldn't handle the stranger he told to leave again and do some of his money to pay those people apologize to the head waiter, he said. Showing respect to the man, it indicates that the demonstrative intervention would benefit others besides making Yasis unhappy in the future. There might be consequences to say that even without tricks, he would do it without losing. The next day, voices were heard in the Alchemist Guild. Itsuki asked what he needed here, and without waiting for the competition day, thinking that he bravely admitted defeat. Dadaro pointed at Itsuki with his finger and shouted how daring he called that man. Dadaro asked Itsuki who he was thinking about, then Dadaro grinned and said he understood everything. Apparently, Itsuki realized the strong influence difference and finally admitted defeat. However, Itsuki grinned and told Dadaro with a wide smile, calling him by that name again would make him cry sadly. Dadaro imagined insulting Itsuki. The girls watched their fight closely. Dadaro shouted that he would never forgive the young man and show him the real hell. Laughing at the man, Itsuki asked him to demonstrate his words. He interrupted their fight and said it was the predetermined day, but the result decided. In an instant, a large number of heavy bags were stacked into a big mountain, which Dadaro took a handful of coins with trembling hands and talked about how he couldn't believe it. Itsuki stood behind the man and said he got exactly 80 million. Itsuki pointed his finger at himself and said that victory is behind him. Yasis turned to Dadaro and said that this is what it means, as seen by the man who had the client reach the assigned amount, Dadaro. Note that this competition is over and has been formal since Dadaro started waving his hand and said that the man might be joking and he wouldn't do it. He admitted it. Then the man pointed his finger to the side and turned to him and said that he was sure he gave the money. The woman said that Dadaro was very noisy and then put her phone down. She threw a package to the man she asked to see there. The man caught the package and asked what it was. Then he unfolded it and was very surprised because he couldn't believe his eyes. These are the details of the payment, accessories, and the buyer is Reincarnate. The man trembled and couldn't believe his eyes. The woman blew smoke and said that everything was written there. The accessories made by Itsuki were bought by this union for 40 million. Dadaro couldn't believe what he saw. He was very surprised by it. His accessories were bought for 40 million. He couldn't believe that there could be such a high cost. The woman said not to be mistaken in his judgment, not to underestimate alchemy. Itsuki was crying and calling Reincarnate at that time. Dadaro was angry and asked where the other 40 million came from. He stated that they were just trying to deceive him. Yasis snapped his fingers and said that Itsuki got another 40 million from him. He signaled to the waiter. The man arrived with a tray in his hand and asked Dadaro to see what he brought. Dadaro asked what it meant, then looked at the tray the young man was carrying. He was surprised to see the king's stamp and said that it was called the Pink Rotor Stamp, a product developed by Yasis's client. Yasis bought exclusive rights to it for 40 million Dadaro and stuttered, saying that if the king approved it, it should bring in huge profits if sold. Itsuki said he would sell it for only 40 million, thinking about the king's stamp. In reality, Yasis worked quickly. Then Itsuki grinned and said that it was a contest where he couldn't lose in anything. DL started shouting that he would never do it, acknowledging Itsuki's victory. At that moment, Wendy interrupted the man. The girl turned to her and said that the result was already determined, so she had to accept it. He shouted at the girl, mocking her, and said she would go with him because she belonged to him. In fact, the girl replied that she refused to go with him because her body and heart belonged to Mr. Itsuki, so she wouldn't go with him. Suddenly, a hammer was heard hitting the wall. Itsuki was scared and even screamed a little. He shifted his attention to him, who had been laughing. At that moment, he muttered to himself that they were all mocking him. He looked at his bankrupt subordinates under the wall and pointed his finger at the opponent, telling his men to kill them all, saying that they were all disturbing him without permission. Dadaro increased the ventilation for those people very roughly, so he hoped they were ready for the consequences. At that moment, the female knights drew their swords and began to tell the story. He had to step back at that moment when Wendy Itsuki grimaced and approached the girl, telling her not to worry because they would protect her. She called herself Aina and spoke to the Beastman girl as if she were a dog. She rebelled and asked who that dog was. Suddenly, another girl jumped down right in front of Itsuki and Wendy, saying they brought another cat. Itsuki was thrilled to see the three girls continue their attack led by Aina. They immediately rushed towards the crowd of men who were ready for battle. One of the men attacked with a hammer, but Aina strongly blocked the blow with her sword. Another man was attacked by the beast girls while Itsuki hugged Wendy. Then he asked the girl if she was scared, even though they said they would protect her. She was scared too. Itsuki laughed a little and saw how the girls were fighting. He said that he was weak and had no strength or skills to fight. He didn't want a battle and roughness. He thought he was an unreliable man, but he didn't want to let go of Wendy's hand. He said while holding Wendy's hand that he wanted to be with her. After listening to the young man, the girl started crying softly. At that moment, Dadaro's father shouted about the problem with the woman and children he ordered, accusing them of killing them soon. Suddenly, a voice could be heard ordering them to stop what was happening. Everyone looked carefully towards the hole in the wall, where a man entered the room and asked Dadaro who was responsible for dragging Scarlet Frontier into the unnecessary fight. Dadaro asked she if he was speaking the truth, and she said that those were his words because of the foolishness of the boy. Initially, he asked General Manager Darwin from the West District how he would handle this. Itsuki looked at the man and thought that he was standing at the top of this area, and then he noticed a girl next to him. He smiled sweetly at her and nodded. Darwin said that first, they needed to find out about the situation he was facing. Dadaro, the man, immediately flinched in fear and asked about his father. Suddenly, Darwin approached Dadaro and said that he always told him to call him father affectionately. Then the man pondered and tried to figure out what he said to his son, calling him Itsuki. Itsuki looked at Darwin carefully and tried to figure out who he was. Darwin grinned and said that Itsuki thought he didn't really care or understand, but he felt uneasy about the different danger from LR and Yasis. In the end, Darwin was told everything the man said. He bet that the contest was for the woman, pointing at Wendy, confirmed by Dadaro. He made a guess and said that Itsuki used a very dirty trick that Darwin did seriously. He turned to Dadaro and said that right after he took part in the competition, that he need to use any technique because winning is a win and losing is a loss. He asked Dadarel if that's how he taught him. Darwin turned to Itsuki and said that he was the handsome man who beat his son. He tried to approach the young man, but a sword was placed on his neck. Shiro told the man to stop, and if he got close to him, sir, he would die soon. Darwin said sarcastically that he was very scared. He then turned to Itsuki and said that the young man thought he was pretty good. Darwin asked Itsuki to tell his surroundings to remove a dangerous object from his neck, otherwise they wouldn't be able to talk calmly. Itsuki turned to Shiro. The girl told Darwin that if he made any strange moves, he would die instantly. Darwin agreed, and then looked at Itsuki and told her that they could talk now. After a while, they all entered the room and sat on the sofa that Darwin placed his shoes on the table, and Itsuki looked at him with full attention. They also entered the room, then approached him and asked the woman if tea should be served to everyone. Darwin's response was that he would be fine. Darwin then said that he understood the core of the story as a whole that was truly defeated. Dadarel became angry, and as a result, all the images turned flat. He looked at his father and asked him to listen to him. He asked if his father truly believed those words. Darwin asked Dadarel to stop talking about it and said that he wouldn't be able to justify himself given his condition. Dadarel shouted that he was Darwin's son. Darwin said that he was not a blood brother, or better said that if he was his son, he shouldn't embarrass his parents so much and be fair. DL was very afraid of that threat. Look at the man that Darwin mentioned. Besides, he always said that if you want to win, you must die, and if you lose, you must die to accept it bravely. He turned to the girl standing behind him and asked me if she was right. The girl blinked and told the man calling her father exactly what she heard, said Darwin. His son made two mistakes. First, he found fault with Yasis's decision. Second, he got into a fight with the Alchemist Guild over the immunity policy towards slave trading companies. The Alchemist Guild was absolute, but now Dadarel violated this rule. They must take some responsibility. He thought about what they should do was ask he who was sweating all over and thinking about Yasis and her that shouldn't leave him. He stared at Yasis and said he would do it, wanting to receive compensation for the mental suffering caused by the storm scene, and if possible, he wanted to receive compensation for the cessation of work during the recovery of the soul and body. Dadarel asked Yasis how many of the thousands of holes there were. Yasis grinned and said he would discuss it with his wife later and send the bill to Darwin. Itsuki thought about it mentally. Suffering is something that cannot scare a man. Then he thought about it. In fact, Yasis turned out to have a wife. Darwin put his hand on his head and said it was all painful. Then he turned to her and asked the woman how about her lyrics, saying that to start with the cost of repairing the broken wall and his payment for the apology he wanted to get. The bankman is one of the extraordinary privileges. Darwin was very surprised and then sighed and said he knew it. The woman would ask him. He said the bank was tough, so he asked the woman to do it, feeling sorry for her. He replied that a man couldn't even give his opinion on financial decisions, so he would be satisfied with the two-person system, but if he didn't like it, he could apply for his son's secret trade. Itsuki was surprised and thought about doing it himself. She explained that secret trade meant smuggling illegal substances with the help of the pharmaceutical union. She asked if the woman really talked about it. Itsuki was very surprised and asked if she really heard correctly about the banned items. Darwin blew out and said that a person who couldn't distinguish the truth had a vulgar way of making money. He turned to Dadarel and said it was even without supervision. Today, he wanted to punish her immediately. He started a strong business will and finally added extra complexity. Dadarel trembled. Darwin asked him if he really thought Darwin wouldn't notice this. For him, the church punishment was enough to escape from barefoot. Then he told the ward to take Dadarel to their mansion. They answered that they understood the man's intention. Then he said that if Dadarel escaped or killed himself, they would understand everything. Itsuki thought this man was a true man who later became Darwin's goal. Itsuki asked what he could do for him. Itsuki replied that he had done enough, so everything was fine. At that time, Itsuki thought he just wanted to escape from here. Shiro, standing behind Darwin, told him not to scare his owner too much. Darwin said that the girl also practiced her back all the time, which made him really uncomfortable. Darwin said that Itsuki really had a good servant, and he wanted to have the same. He then pointed towards Wendy and said that besides being beautiful, she also asked the girls why none of them went with her because she didn't want to do anything wrong. Suddenly, Itsuki jumped up from his seat and covered Wendy's hand. Itsuki said that it seems like girls' hobbies aren't as bad as boys, but he didn't agree with that approach. Besides, Wendy already belonged to his boyfriend, Darwin. Darwin said that Itsuki has been trembling with fear lately, and now he is a completely different person, ready to bite. He praised Itsuki, saying that most people like him don't live long. Itsuki said that he came here to do something interesting and fun, and even if he gets killed, he won't do it. Darwin said that the young man is a homeless person, and Itsuki finds that very interesting. He replied that first of all, if we're talking about apologies, he refused Dadarl's apology. He will be punished and he doesn't need to bow anymore. He turned to Itsuki and said that it's no longer a question of accepting or not. He doesn't know how things are done where he comes from, but this place also has its own etiquette in apologizing. It won't work if you don't accept someone's apology. Darwin added that's why if he can do anything, he should just say it. Then he placed his hand on his daughter and asked how about marrying his daughter. She is a very good woman. Itsuki was very surprised. Mira smiled and said that Itsuki was interesting and not stingy, even though she didn't know if she would be satisfied with him. Itsuki apologized and said that he thought someone like him wouldn't be suitable for their daughter. They didn't have a relationship at the moment, so he rejected Mira's offer. He told Itsuki not to think about it seriously and just say what he wants now. Itsuki thought about what he wanted now and said that if everything is right, then he wants it. After a while, the young man drank the brewed flower tea. The girl answered that she also had delicious tea. Itsuki prefers coffee, so he doesn't really understand the taste, but he really likes it, said Reinrich. Itsuki was very happy. After all the problems he really went through, the young man didn't feel anxious. Itsuki agreed, and finally everything was calm. She also received various bonuses, so everyone was happy. The woman was surprised and said that they had created a fight with her, and as a sign of resolving the fight, the humble Itsuki repeated the woman's words that it was simple. She added, and said that the bank is also for 2 people, so it's simple for her. Itsuki sighed and thought about what he would actually do. Aina interrupted their conversation and said that Darwin's messenger had just arrived today. She wanted to convey to him what was discussed. Itsuki stood up and told her that he would leave for a while. Meanwhile, she started drinking tea and asked him to come when he settled because he had a job for him. The young man waved and said he understood. After a while, the girl told the young man he was lucky. Itsuki asked what they meant. The girl said she still thought something had to be bought together with him getting money. Itsuki asked if she meant he was a capable man. The girl thought he was doing his best this time. Itsuki thanked her. Aina interrupted them and said the man was looking to continue. Itsuki agreed and said it was according to the map. It was somewhere around here. She then pointed to the right place and asked if this could be it. Itsuki arrived in another world and got his own house. Itsuki and the girls stood right in front of the big house door where they were all surprised, but Aina called it her sweet mansion. The girl was full of joy power. Itsuki and the girls turned to Aina and asked what it meant to hear from her about the nice house. They started whispering. Itsuki said it. Aina now called this house cute. The girl answered that maybe she was comparing it to something else. Itsuki then took hold of the door handle but didn't open the door. The girl asked the young man why he did that, not wanting to go in. Itsuki turned around, smiling awkwardly, and said so little nervously that he was happy when he first got his own house and rented his own room. But he didn't expect to get the house exclusively. He didn't quite understand Itsuki's true feelings. Then Itsuki opened the door of the house and saw Wendy inside the room, bowing as a greeting to Itsuki. The girl greeted Itsuki, who was very surprised, and asked Wendy why she was here. Wendy smiled and said that it was her duty to prepare everything before the owner's arrival. Itsuki remembered Wendy's words and thought that now she had reached her peak, and now she could peacefully die with her own belongings. His thoughts were interrupted by Darwin's greeting the young man. The man asked Itsuki if he was satisfied with this house. Itsuki asked the man if he was sure. Darwin replied that there was nothing to talk about now. He didn't do half of his job, so he took the house completely. The young man's request was an alchemy room in the basement. He also arranged suitable furniture, and, of course, everything was first class. In this place it was a real discovery, and he regretted a little to part with it, but he asked the young man who accepted this place. Itsuki thanked Darwin, and they both shook hands with Darwin, adding that they had now closed the case of the foolish child, so Itsuki could do everything himself, and tomorrow Yasis would come here. Darwin left, and Itsuki thought about what he should do now. Wendy asked if she should make tea. Itsuki agreed with the girl, then turned to Aina and sorted out and told the girls to use the appropriate room. Then he informed them about the type of service they were wearing for the type of accommodation. The girl was angry, but the young man said it. Then he stayed outside after a while, kind of sunbathing on the soft bed. He turned from side to side and talked about how it was better than the nearest hotel. Aina agreed with the girl's words, kind of squeezing the pillow and saying that Itsuki had done a good job. Then he remembered the bathtub and asked if there was a bathtub here. Aina agreed and said that the man would meet her soon. Sorting answered that they hadn't bathed properly in a long time, so he reached out to Aina's hand and told her to go there together. Aina replied that the man was bathing now, but kind of not listening to her at the moment. Itsuki was sitting in the bathroom, stretching, and saying that this was truly heaven because he hadn't bathed for a long time where you could stretch your arms and legs. Come to think of it, he often visited the spa, the only oasis in the black life, where overtime didn't matter. Now there are not enough cold and cold drinks for you, and it will be a good mood. Suddenly someone approached him. Itsuki turned and saw Wendy asking the young man if he could rub his back. Itsuki became scared and immediately started to cover himself. The young man asked Wendy what she was doing here. Wendy replied that she came to massage the young man's back after a while. They all sat confused, and Wendy asked him to let her know next time when he would take a bath so she could attend to him any time. The girl poured soap onto the sponge and started rubbing Itsuki's back while asking him if he was hurt. Itsuki answered that he was fine for now. Itsuki was fully focused on his body being embraced by Wendy and thanked her for making him hers and for being with him. The girl said she was very happy about this. Their conversation was interrupted by someone asking Itsuki how long he would stay swimming because it was time for them. Aina asked them not to be rude about it as they took a picture where Itsuki and Wendy were very close to each other with trembling hands. Itsuki started telling a story, saying that he was just a scoundrel and that it was just a misunderstanding. At that moment, the girl took a basin and covered Aina's face so she wouldn't see it, or else it would dirty her eyes. Aina quietly turned around and left the bathtub, starting to sneer and saying that she hated Itsuki, even though he deserved it. Itsuki started saying that nothing happened and that Wendy was just washing his body at that time. Aina entered the bathroom wearing only a towel and apologized to her master, saying that if the master bathed, it was the servant's duty to assist. She also wanted to help. She apologized to Wendy for not thinking twice about abandoning all her work. Aina asked Wendy not to worry about unnecessary things and told Itsuki to leave the bathroom. She wanted to approach Aina and tell her that she wanted to fulfill her duties. But suddenly the girl slipped on leftover soap and fell to the floor. The towel flew off her body as Aina felt embarrassed and quickly started to cover herself and straighten her hair. At that moment, Itsuki shouted at her not to look as he was thinking about her beauty. The bathroom was a mess, and just then, voices could be heard in the hallway of Darwin's house. Someone regretted Dadaryl's father's case, but it was something they had to deal with, even though it would be troublesome. Mira's beloved father said that he didn't do it, and there was no need to worry about it because him. Dadaryl had tarnished their reputation. Personally, the foster father took over his son's case and agreed with the girl's words. He said that regardless, Dadaryl was truly a foolish man who had forgotten his father's kindness. Mira asked how long they would keep talking about who they were done with because this conversation was no longer interesting. He apologized to her and said that if we talked about it, the current key would be more interesting. He replied that he was a very funny man, and the man answered that he also wanted to meet this young master of the Alchemist Association. The next morning, Shiro stood on the mansion's rooftop and carefully watched the bird that had arrived. Then he went inside the house and started wagging his tail. The girl began to sneak and sniff, recognizing the familiar scent. He went to the door and opened it slightly. The girl saw a room where there was a large bed that Itsuki was sleeping on. The girl called out to the owner of the bed while sleeping that she would redo the document by the end of the weekend, so she apologized and told not to joke with her about it. Itsuki trembled and spoke through his sleep. His boss occasionally stroked Shiro's head, and he stopped trembling a few hours later when the sun shone brightly in the sky. Itsuki opened his eyes and woke up because it was already morning. Then he saw some movement beside him and looked down, realizing that it was Shiro. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. Itsuki allowed Wendy to enter the room. Wendy came in and hoped Itsuki was okay. In the morning, she said breakfast was ready. Then she bent over the bed and said that Shiro came at night. Itsuki agreed and said he was already awake and Shiro was sleeping next to him. Wendy smiled and said there was nothing to be done about this child. She said she would wake him up, but Itsuki said he was still sleeping at that time. After a while, Shiro's stomach growled. The table was set. Itsuki hoped everyone had a good appetite. Wendy told Aina and the others that she would pour the soup. The girls thanked Wendy and asked if she really cooked all these dishes. Wendy agreed and asked what was wrong. Itsuki and Shiro started eating large amounts of food at once, telling Wendy that it tasted delicious. Then Itsuki and Shiro couldn't swallow their food pieces, so they started drinking water and then eating large amounts of food again. After a while, Itsuki thanked her for the meal. Wendy placed a cup of tea in front of Itsuki, thanked her, and said it was really delicious. Wendy replied that if the young man said so, then it must be worth preparing. Itsuki also said that the last night's dinner was extraordinary and asked if he could eat such delicious food every day from now on. Wendy grinned and said that the young man was definitely well fed now. It was unclear who the boss was here. Itsuki grinned and said something like that seemed to not understand anything, asking the young man what he was talking about. Itsuki answered that it was not an exaggeration to say that one's happiness is determined by the quality of food. He asked if the girl knew the feeling of eating that filled her stomach with an unsatisfying dinner, not just an empty stomach, but also a heart. This is what gives energy and hope for tomorrow. He was actually the true master of the house, and for them, this warm and delicious food was provided by Wendy, the goddess. Shiro then turned to Wendy, who was washing dishes, and said that she had brought the dishes. Wendy thanked the girl. Shiro looked at Wendy, who noticed Shiro's gaze. Shiro said that Wendy had changed a bit. The food tasted better than when Yasis had it. Wendy was surprised, and then smiled, asking if this really happened. After a while, Itsuki asked all the girls to gather together for a moment. He asked if something serious had happened, and Itsuki replied that it caused a little excitement. He wanted to give a gift to the girls and thank them in a special way. So he gave them a jewelry box and asked the girls to take it. He gave Aina a beautiful pair of earrings, a lovely dress for Sortir to wear, and a hairpin in the shape of a bell to Shiro. Itsuki started to get restless, moving from one place to another. She asked the young man why he was so nervous, and Itsuki said it was embarrassing to give gifts facing each other, so it somehow felt awkward. She felt embarrassed and thanked to him, and then Wendy, saying she would appreciate this gift. Shiro sweetly thanked the young man with the bell ringing. After a while, Itsuki asked Sorta and Aina if they were really ready to leave because they could rest a little longer. They answered that they couldn't do it, but with the help of their next task, they would pay off their unreasonable debt and be free. The girl said she would be free from a pet dog to a free wolf. Suddenly, Itsuki asked the girl for her claw, and she immediately gave it to him. Sorta realized his mistake and immediately cried on Itsuki's shoulder. The young man glanced at Aina and told her carefully that they needed to watch out for themselves. Aina said she understood, hoping that the girls would have a safe journey. She informed Aina that they would end it this time. Aina replied that it seemed the girl was right, saying that it was not the time to laugh. They needed to do something before their ranking would drop again. If he found out, they would become servants of a man. At that time, they didn't know what he would do. Ina said that kind of thing worried her. The honorable man denied it and said that in any case, they had to move forward cheerfully. That evening, in the presence of Yasis, the engagement ceremony was held together with Wendy and Shiro. The contract seal appeared in the girl's hand. Yasis's hand told Itsuki that she didn't do it, thinking that she would push the servant before signing the contract, like a woman forcing her husband to marry. As a merchant, she still had to learn and study. Itsuki apologized for the fact. The man intentionally came. Yasis thanked Itsuki for buying Wendy and Shiro. Itsuki apologized to Shiro while forcing the purchase. Yasis said she was sure the young man would need this girl. Itsuki agreed and said that if something else happened, he asked the man to let him know. After a while, Itsuki sat on the grass and enjoyed the fresh air. Wendy approached him and said it was almost time for dinner. Then the girl asked the young man what he was doing here. Itsuki replied that the park here was spacious, so he thought of making a field. Here, Wendy asked what the field means. Itsuki agreed and said that when he came here he got the idea. Wendy asked the young man if he had worked in the field before. Itsuki responded negatively and said that he wanted to try. He would plant vegetables and Wendy could plant flowers and decorate the house together. Shiro would go hunting in the mountains. They could also go fishing together. Then they would invite Ina and want to visit Shiro's house and ask the owner what he was talking about. Itsuki said that the three of them should live happily ever after. After hugging Shiro, Itsuki said that he was happy with that. The owner of the house agreed and said that Shiro was very cute. Itsuki thought that being happy in this place was what he wanted to do. After a while, Wendy approached the young man and said that a guest had arrived. Itsuki was very surprised because the guests had arrived. Derma and Mira approached him. The young man greeted and said that he was one of Darwin's children, and his name was Derma. It was a great honor for him to meet the young man. Itsuki was surprised when Derma called him young master. Derma continued to smile, and Itsuki wondered why this handsome man was smiling like that, which was a bit disturbing. After a while, Wendy brought a tray with a cup of tea. Derma thanked the girl and said that he would introduce himself again. He was one of Darwin's adopted children, and his name was Derma. From now on, he was pleased to meet the young man. He was responsible for construction and design work under his adoptive father's supervision. Itsuki wanted to introduce himself, but Derma said that he was a famous student that he had heard of. The young master was popular. Itsuki was thinking about Derma, wondering how to remind him of the annoyingly careless things. The seller asked Derma what his business was, apologizing to Itsuki, and saying that he got a little carried away. He came today to express his thanks and apologize to the younger generation. Itsuki's teacher asked what thanks and apologies Derma was talking about. Derma agreed and explained what he meant about the incident with Dedaro's father. This man caused a lot of trouble for the young man, and he sincerely apologized for it. Itsuki asked what happened to Dedaro, not too concerned about it. Derma asked if Itsuki wanted to hear it. Itsuki apologized, saying he still didn't need it. Derma said it was a good choice. Itsuki thought about the fact that they were both adopted children, and there was a difference between them. He wondered what criteria were usually chosen. Derma said they didn't need to worry about this person at all. They got rid of him without consequences, so he wanted to thank the young man. Itsuki said he had already dealt with Darwin, so he didn't need to thank him again. He thought about what they got rid of there. Derma said it wouldn't work. He wanted to thank the young master from the bottom of his heart. Itsuki asked if he could stop calling him young master. She told Itsuki to be careful because Derma didn't really like girls. This made stony Derma's male face tell Meira not to do it because it wasn't because he liked the guy, but because he liked someone better than him. Besides, his father, who prioritized the young master, was still in third place, so he asked Itsuki not to worry. Itsuki silently asked Derma to stop, and then interrupted them and told Derma that her father said he was still young, so he shouldn't be so casual. Derma apologized to the girl. Itsuki thought Derma didn't have such a thing as a handsome, annoying guy. He didn't like women, so it was just a waste of a face like that. Derma said he didn't like to force his will, but one day Itsuki would understand. He could come to his house. Itsuki said he would never come. After a while, they went out to the yard. Derma asked Itsuki how much she liked the house and if she had any complaints. Itsuki said everything was fine, so she didn't need to complain, and Derma didn't need to worry. Derma smiled and told Itsuki that he was very careful. Mira added and asked Itsuki how much she liked using the bathroom. Itsuki said the bathroom was very nice. Mira replied that she had designed Itsuki's bathroom and asked if that was really the case. Mira agreed and said that while working, she sometimes listened to the preferences of other homeless people and did her best to satisfy them. The young master, Itsuki, said that the Japanese were very picky about bathing and said it was just brilliant work. Mira replied that she was very happy. Mira asked the young man to let her know when he would go to the city. She would take him to the place where the other homeless people liked him. Itsuki thought that this girl seemed to come from a good family, but why was she adopted by Darwin? Derma said he was sorry now, but it was time for them to leave. If they needed something, she could feel free to ask. Itsuki thanked Derma and said that the guests were very tired at that time. Shiro's stomach growled. Itsuki apologized to the girl and said that he was hungry. Shiro also said that he was hungry. Itsuki reached out for Shiro's hand and said that he was wondering what to have for dinner tonight. Shiro said that Wendy seemed to be frying a lot of meat. After a while, Itsuki, Shiro, and Wendy were sitting in front of the table and enjoying dinner. After dinner, Itsuki sat in an armchair and said that he had eaten too much and couldn't fit anymore. Wendy interrupted Itsuki's thoughts and said that she had prepared a bath and if the young man wanted to take it. Itsuki thanked Wendy. The girl said she would come later, too. Shiro raised his hand and said that he would also bathe with the master. After a while, they went to the bathroom and started shampooing Shiro's hair. Itsuki joked and called Shiro a visitor, and then he asked if her back was itchy, her ears, then she washed the girl's hair shampoo. Shiro started to get dusty. He went away. Itsuki asked him to stop and then left to sunbathe in the hot water. Shiro started running to the bathroom. Itsuki said that if he ran, he would fall. Shiro immediately jumped into the water. Itsuki thought so, even though he was indeed a cat. He could swim calmly. Then Itsuki asked Shiro not to swim in the bathtub, but the girl didn't pay attention because she was interested in someone else. If not, she then asked if Shiro was feeling it. Well, the girl answered yes. She enjoyed bathing at the moment. Wendy took off her clothes to take a bath too. Itsuki had already gotten into the water and enjoyed the beautiful water with Shiro. He said that Shiro should sit on his shoulder properly and warm up. Then Wendy came to the bathroom. The girl was washing. Then she approached Itsuki, who didn't even see the girl. She apologized for disturbing him. Wendy sat in the bathtub. Suddenly Shiro felt hot and said so. She left the bathroom. Wendy and Itsuki were left alone. Wendy broke the silence and apologized to Itsuki, and then asked if she could visit the young men's room today. Itsuki agreed after a while. The young man was lying in his bed when suddenly someone knocked on his door. Itsuki allowed the newcomer to enter. Wendy entered the room at night in her clothes and apologized to Itsuki for disturbing him. After a while, Itsuki sat on the bed next to Wendy and told her. After receiving his salary, he always goes to that restaurant. Their meat cuts and rice dishes are excellent. He wants Wendy to try it too. The girl said that if the man tells her the recipe, maybe she could cook something similar, although she might not get the same taste. Itsuki said that it might be possible, but she would still try making this dish another time. Then there was a pause. Itsuki thought that for some reason he remembered his first date where there was also a long pause between him and the girl. Then Wendy took the young man by the hand and said that he didn't have to be polite because that's just how he is, only a waiter. Itsuki interrupted the girl and said that she really liked Wendy. Then Itsuki asked Wendy if she liked him. Wendy agreed and then held his hand and said that she liked him. Itsuki was not like the other men she had met. It didn't matter that he was a waiter and there was a contract. When she was with this man, she asked the young man to make her his woman. Wendy lay on the bed and Itsuki stared at her. Then they got closer and their faces turned very red. Suddenly the door opened and Shiro entered the room. The girl made the wrong door and it turned out it wasn't the bathroom. Shiro approached Wendy and Itsuki and asked what they were doing. Itsuki tried to get out of the situation and said that Wendy was feeling unwell, so she was taking care of her. Shiro asked if this was really true and if Wendy was indeed okay. Itsuki said that Wendy was fine and then said that she would take the girl to the bathroom. Wendy was left alone in bed. The next evening, Itsuki looked at the sun and thought about how he couldn't sleep. Finally, Shiro came to him and said that Wendy had done it, saying that breakfast was ready. After a while, Itsuki had breakfast and Wendy asked him if he wanted more soup. Itsuki agreed and asked for more soup. They were both confused, and Itsuki said he would go there for a while today. Wendy agreed with him, and after a while, Itsuki gathered himself and told the girl that he would go. Wendy hoped that the young man would be careful. Itsuki turned around and walked away, then held the girl's shoulder and said that next time he would do everything right. Wendy was very embarrassed. Itsuki left the house and waved to the girl. Wendy smiled and wished the young man a safe journey. Itsuki ran about his business with an awkward smile on his face. After a while, Itsuki arrived at the Alchemist Union to check the potion and said that it wasn't bad and the quality had improved. Now the young man could try making a higher-level potion. Itsuki agreed, and Reinrich grinned and asked if the young man was tired of being surrounded by cute people. Itsuki laughed awkwardly and told the woman everything, ending with Shiro coming in and nothing happening. Reinrich asked if the young man had returned to his room, and Itsuki answered that he was very confused. She said that the young man was just the worst, and that's usually why they got divorced. She called Itsuki a foolish child and added that he had left a woman in his bed ready for this because he was ready to still be a man. He then called Itsuki to follow him, and then said that if the young man was busy, he said he would give a lecture occasionally pouring something into the woman's glass, asking Itsuki to drink it first. Itsuki was surprised because he was about to drink something now. She said that if he could talk about it wisely, he would serve tea for the young man. The young man answered that everything was fine. Then he said that Wendy had told him that she liked him, but at that time, he thought for a moment that this was his true feelings, or just a slave's response. She said that the young man dared to go against the guild and Darwin's adventure, but now he worried about the small things. The young man replied that if he hugged her with such feelings, he might hurt her. That's why he couldn't go back to the room when he went with Shiro. He just ran away saying that Itsuki was a pitiful man who should not only look at himself, but also at his partner, a woman skilled in lying, but in crucial moments contrary to their expectations, they couldn't hide the truth. Itsuki's feelings were asking whether this is his life story. He couldn't imagine it easily. Later, he observed that Itsuki was being impolite. Itsuki grinned and mentioned it. Then later that day, he asked a lady to ensure he stayed until the end. Reinrich stated she wouldn't look after the young man if he passed out, and eventually the young man fell asleep on the table. Reinrich called for some flowers and instructed her to leave everything as is and go to bed. The girl agreed, and Reinrich covered the young man with a blanket, commenting that he was truly a troublesome man. She lit his pipe and remarked that he thought the girl should also be held responsible for it. The next morning, Itsuki came home, and Wendy looked at the young man nervously. Suddenly, Itsuki fell to his knees and said good morning to Wendy and also said that he was at home. Wendy greeted the young man at home with a nervous smile. After a while, Wendy gave Itsuki a cup of tea and said that she had made it a little strong and hoped that the young man would wake up. Itsuki thanked the girl, and Shiro asked Itsuki why he did it because Wendy looked very angry. Itsuki thought about it, although he had to say comments like that, but going back home in the morning was a common violation. Shiro then asked if the young man was working today. Itsuki agreed, and then said that there was still time before the next delivery of the potion, so he wasn't very busy today. Shiro asked if the young man would be able to play with her today, and Itsuki said that he had a small request for Shiro. Then, he looked at Wendy and said that he might help Wendy today, after all the girls gave the young man an indifferent look, and said that he didn't need to worry because he would handle it himself. Itsuki himself realized that it didn't work out, and Wendy's eyes didn't look good. Wendy pouted and started to leave the room. Itsuki tried to talk to her, but she didn't pay attention to him. Itsuki grabbed his head with his hands, and Shiro started to calm him down. Wendy walked down the corridor and then sighed, and with tears streaming down her face, she said that she was waiting for that man. After a while, Itsuki lay on the grass under the sunlight and thought about it. He had offended Wendy a lot, so he didn't understand what he should do. The same thing had happened in the past when he couldn't go on a date because of urgent work, and the girl became very angry, and then they became embarrassed and eventually broke up. Itsuki then told the girl that she was like a sulking child, and that if she said she was already an adult, at least she should keep her promise. Itsuki lied on the grass, and then got up and said that he needed to apologize properly, even if Wendy wouldn't forgive him. But now the girl approached the boy and asked him if she could sit next to him. Itsuki agreed, and they started talking to each other at some point. But then Itsuki jumped up from his seat. He turned to Wendy in silence and whispered, bowing and apologizing to her, even though he said he would do everything right. He sincerely apologized now. Wendy was very surprised, and then started laughing. Wendy sighed and said that this time she would forgive Itsuki, and then asked the boy if he knew that she had been waiting for him all this time. The girl approached and asked Itsuki not to do it again. Itsuki agreed, and then Wendy hugged him and told him it was a thought-out promise. Itsuki had already forgiven her at that time. Shiro interrupted them and asked how Tias he had done it with Wendy, and if they had made peace because Wendy, who was hungry, said she would cook dinner right away. Itsuki replied that Shiro could accompany her for a while after that. After a while, after eating, Shiro and Itsuki were cleaning the dishes. Shiro turned to the boy and asked what his deal was. Itsuki remembered this. He said that since he came to this world, he felt protected as usual. He wondered how he could defend himself. Then the boy showed what he had achieved. He used magic and pulled out a hammer. Wendy said, "This is amazing," and then asked if it was a unique skill. Itsuki said it was spatial magic. He arrived here thinking it was an item box received from the goddess. His friend gave him a magical bag, so he didn't have a chance to use it, but he just leveled up and tested it. He activated spatial magic and used a shield. Wendy didn't understand what was happening, and then Itsuki asked her to try touching it. Wendy touched it and realized it was some kind of invisible wall. Itsuki agreed and said he could make the wall transparent so he could use it for his own protection. The young man turned to Shiro and asked him to hit it with a weapon. Shiro asked if the young man was really sure about this. Itsuki agreed and asked him to give it his best shot. Shiro said it was on and suddenly attacked the young man. Itsuki realized that his wall was able to protect him. Then he asked the girl to start attacking continuously. Shiro agreed and started launching sudden attacks. Suddenly, the wall collapsed. Itsuki said that meant there was a limit to its power, even though it made sense since its usage was unlimited cheating. Then he asked about Wendy's offensive magic. She interrupted him and said she had learned most of the spells. If the young man wanted, she could help with that. The young man was surprised and asked the girl to use magic. Wendy started and then recited the incantation. Itsuki is on high alert as Wendy uses a water injection, causing the walls to crack even faster and eventually completely shatter, drenching Itsuki with water. Wendy asks if Itsuki is okay, and Itsuki says everything is fine. His barrier can handle physics and magic, except for his own power against magic, which is somewhat weak. However, he at least has the ability to protect himself if something happens. Itsuki is happy and says they will go to the city tonight as a thank you for the company. He wants everyone to treat themselves well tonight. Shiro is very happy at that moment, as Aina and the others are fighting the monster. He shouts to Aina that the monster is coming towards her. Aina agrees and swiftly draws her sword, running towards the creature. She stabs it with her sword, cutting off its horn and saying they have collected most of the materials in the area. She calls out to her and says the food is ready, sorted according to her preferences. She says it's better than yesterday as a start, and he can drink it. She then tells that she doesn't need her to force herself to cook something complicated, because her cooking is usually not that bad. Aina says she won't do it because as a woman, she can't possibly meet those needs. At least she wants to be useful in other ways, like asking why things happen or thinking about what she would say if she saw Aina right now. This time, at the second fortress wall, the two girls ask the guard to let them pass because they have important things to do. The guard refuses and says a message came from the border fortress. Even if she comes, they can't let her go through. The girl asked about the reason for this man's decision. He said he didn't care how long it took, but that's just the girl's name is Renga, and she said she had said several times that she didn't have any money. Renga said she was in a hurry, so she asked the guard to let her through. The priest answered that he would do it again himself. Even Ren, this time they couldn't miss the angry girl. She then pointed to the side and told the guards to look to the side. The guards didn't pay attention to anything behind their backs and turned directly to the girl. She hit the guard's head. He fell, and the girl ran past him. The second guard started whistling into the rolls. She turned to Aina and sorted and asked them to wait because the girl was already on her way to them. At that time, Itsuki was walking in the square and suddenly realized something strange, like a potato. But this creature was walking. Itsuki said there was something strange walking here. Wendy answered that it belonged to me. It must have escaped from a store. Itsuki asked the girl what it was. Wendy answered that it was a vegetable. Itsuki was surprised and asked if local vegetables were really tasty. Wendy agreed and said that most of them walked. Then she was asked if the vegetables didn't really enter. Itsuki agreed and said there might not be a vegetable walkway, but at least there was a fast-legged fish. Wendy was very happy and said the break was very interesting. At that time, Shiro grabbed mine and started chewing it. The girl owned that she was very hungry. The young man answered the girl that it was really disgusting. He patted Shiro's head and apologized. Then asked Shiro if he wanted to eat. Shiro said he really wanted to eat. Itsuki said everything was ready and they would eat meat, and also said that he would feed the girl completely. Itsuki asked Wendy if she knew a good restaurant here. The girl agreed and told the young man to rely on her. They were on their way. Itsuki held Wendy and Shiro's hands and then exchanged glances with Wendy. They became embarrassed. Then they arrived at the restaurant and ate delicious food to their heart's content. It was already evening. The guards patrolled the city and chased after the girl. She ran and said that the guards were bothering her. She jumped from the roof. At that moment, Shiro said he wanted to eat more. Itsuki was surprised because of his small size. His body could fit so much. The flying wrench passed by Itsuki and shouted at him to step aside and be careful. Itsuki turned around and in an instant he hit his face with his knee. They fell and overturned a barrel nearby, which Shiro took out her axe at the same time. The guards ran and told the girl not to do it, to stop running away from them. She showed her claws and said if they approached, she would attack. Itsuki won't be left behind. The girl whispered to the young man, apologizing that she wanted him, the young man, to help her at least a little. She asked him again to help save their comrades. Wendy became scared and called Shiro. Then Itsuki said he was fine, so he asked Shiro to pick up Wendy and take her home. The young man smiled when he heard that. Meanwhile, the guard shouted at the girl, "Don't make her commit crimes again!" Itsuki whispered to the girl to take him to the alley on the right and run. The girl grabbed Itsuki and took him to an alley. The guards ordered them to stop, but Itsuki suddenly used third-level spatial magic. He created an invisible wall, causing all the guards to crash into each other. They asked what was happening, and one of the men said it was for some reason he couldn't pass through. Itsuki apologized to them, and then told the girl that they had to escape first. Renga agreed, and then glanced at the young man. At that moment, Itsuki and Renga were being watched by Shiro, who was on the rooftop of the building. The girl remembered Wendy's words, asking to be protected by Mr. Itsuki. Shiro jumped from the rooftop and said that he knew everything himself. After a while, Itsuki and Ren found themselves in a very familiar place. The young man and the girls were treated well and welcomed by the men who also served them cocktails and escorted them to their table. Renga asked the young man what kind of place it was. Itsuki said that he knew the owner of the place, so they would only use their own influence. Renga said that the young man had brought her to a place like that, and what he planned to do with her. Answer Itsuki that even there is no such thing as the eyes of the guards will not reach such a place. So they will sit here. Then he said that those people are guards, so he asked the girl what she had done. Renga answered that she was short of money. Itsuki said that means the girl didn't pay the entrance fee. Then he asked the girl what her name was. Renga introduced herself. Itsuki then said the girl recently said that she would save her colleagues. Renga said so what actually happened to her colleagues in trouble. She is an adventurer. And then asked the young man if he had ever heard from the Red Front is a friend of her group members named Aina and Sorti. On some time ago, she received a letter from it. Seems there is a man who kidnapped them. She gave the young man a paper and said that this is the requested letter and then asked, "How are you?" And then they are now inside. It continues their activity. They become slaves. And he always licks it with his evil eyes. And one day he saw Aina without clothes. Itsuki was very angry because the girl sent a very strange message letter to Renga. Renga said that's what happened. That's why he wanted to find this man and save them both. Itsuki asked the girl to stop and said that he wanted the girl to calm down and listen to him about it. This letter is most likely herself. Renge laughed and said it was a bad joke. Suddenly an employee of the institution sat with them and told Itsuki if he really did, it would dominate the entire Scarlet Frontier on his own. Suddenly Reng got angry and engaged in a bare-handed fight with Itsuki. Aina and Renga had been on an exciting adventure together for several months as guild members. Just when they thought things couldn't get more interesting, a package arrived specifically for Aina. Intrigued, Aina questioned if it was truly intended for them. To her surprise, it turned out to be an urgent request from Rukaku. Aina used the key from the sword to unlock the package, confirming that it was indeed meant for the sword's key. Excitement filled the air as Aina asked if it was truly the Earth Dragon, realizing they had to act quickly. Curiosity getting the better of her, Aina wondered if Renga always returned safely after every adventure. Renga quickly reassured her, promising to think on her feet and make a speedy return. Playfully, Renga asked if Aina could handle the upcoming task, assuring her that it would be a walk in the park. However, Reng did remind Aina to stay alert and careful, as she did have a tendency to be a bit reckless. With a cheerful grin, Reng expressed confidence in their decision and reassured Aina that she could relax a bit. It was time to face the challenge head-on and conquer it together. After a while, Reng arrived at Rukaku. Reng wiped the sweat from his face and said it was hot as usual here. Suddenly, someone struck Renji in the tail. A girl turned around and saw the kids there. The girl said she knew it was Reng. The boy smiled and said it was really his sister. Renge greeted the kids and said they hadn't met in a long time. She asked them how they were doing. She then asked falsely what happened to him and why they were injured like that. He said he was injured by the Earth Dragon. He returned home after trading with father and the dragon attacked them. He injured his father's leg, so his mother had to work and take care of him, making it very difficult. Renga asked the boys to entertain him, giving one of them something in his hand and saying that he wanted him to give it to his father. He asked if it was really money, and Reng replied that she remembered it. She had an account with his father, so they apologized for being late. He asked if this was really the case, feeling embarrassed to greet his father. Then the girl said she was hungry, so she went to eat and invited the boys to join her. The children agreed, and after a while she fed everyone delicious food. In the evening, the girl arrived due to the adventurer's mistake. The man apologized to the guest and said that now there was no human noise with the Earth Dragon. Renga greeted the man and said that they hadn't seen each other in a long time. The man was surprised and asked if she could really come. Renga apologized and told him about the whole journey. The man replied that he had also heard rumors. Renga apologized to the man for disturbing him directly, but he needed some equipment and information. The man agreed and said that the Earth Dragon appeared about 3 months ago. Maybe they survived the last time, or there are still some eggs left that they have. The local adventurer and self-defense group are trying to destroy them. However, they have very tough skin that regular weapons have no chance against. When they attack people, they dive under the sand and sleep until the next hunt. He is almost incomprehensible, and they won't be able to handle him. Renge noticed them and thought that maybe the 3 of them were the last ones. They were last seen 5 days ago in the South Oasis. That's the information Ranga conveyed. It's true that he came here alone. Aina can handle it, but she'll be in a really bad mood in such an ambush. She was watching a mannequin hanging from a tree branch when suddenly there was some kind of snowstorm under the mannequin where the earth dragon climbed. The monster checked the doll and didn't understand what the wrench said. 3 days passed, and finally the first dragon appeared. He tore off his cloak and said it was time for punishment. The girl called the dragon a common lizard. This time it was her turn to be eaten. The girl fought the dragon while Aina came after her bath and was told about it. Her bathroom was free. The girl said she would handle it and left. Aina asked if this letter was genuine, agreed, and said they had agreed on many things. So she decided to do it, to tell Ranga about it and tell him what was happening. She looked out the window and said she hoped Ranga was okay in that situation. As the girl fought against the earth dragon, the dragon swung its tail. She dodged skillfully, but at one point she missed the girl's punch. She jumped to the side and said that the dragon's protection was still very strong. The girl mentioned that she would continue with determination. She sprinted towards the dragon and launched an attack, causing damage to the targeted objects. Amidst the dragon's teeth, she extracted something slimy. The dragon was defeated. Ren wiped his face and mentioned that there were still 2 dragons remaining. The girl returned to the village and expressed that it took longer than expected. The children added that it was truly astonishing to conquer the earth. The dragons owned by everyone in town were immensely grateful to Renge, who claimed ownership. Thanks to Renge, her father would soon regain the ability to walk. The girl remarked that it was a positive outcome. Subsequently, Renge arrived at the Adventurers Guild. The guild leader commended the girl for truly saving everyone. The girl humbly stated that it wasn't solely her accomplishment, but also her duty. The man apologized to the girl and said he wouldn't do it now. He could prepare a lot of money and send them to the fellowship. The girl then said Renge would leave the process of the corpses to them. The guild leader said the girl had received a letter. Renge was very surprised and asked where the letter came from. The head answered where it came from. The girl understood that the letter was sent based on the type. She began to read and then ran out of the guild in anger. The guild leader asked what happened. Renge apologized to the man and said he had urgent matters to attend to, so he would come back later. The guild leader said the girl was very busy and also forgot the letter at that time. The girl ran and begged Aina and waited. It was said that he would definitely destroy this man at that moment. She wanted to hit Itsuki, and the young man was covering his head with his hands. Suddenly, Shiro appeared between them and told the girl that was enough. If she did anything else, Shiro would kill her. Itsuki was very surprised by Shiro's appearance. There was a saint who annihilated darkness and brought light to the world. The miracle that the saint has performed is one of the gods' blessings. But this will bring disaster to monsters. People from all walks of life pray to the saint, especially when the saint can cure various diseases. Street singers often sang of the saint's miracles in eradicating hunger. But the saint has a big secret and not everyone knows it. In reality, the saint is a small slime creature, and the original body texture is slippery and soft. If the saint's identity is known, this will be a bad thing. So far, the saint has been very loved by the community for all the actions that have been done by her. Saint kept this secret and did not want anyone to know about her. You can see the atmosphere at the Duke Aspic guest house. The building is spacious, magnificent, and very well maintained. A maid came and brought warm fish food for Miss Jelly. The maid apologized for bringing the food late today. Jelly's face was flat and she didn't say anything. When the fish food was placed on her table, Jelly suddenly immediately threw her plate into the maid's face so that all the food fell scattered on the floor. Jelly explained that she wanted to eat meat today instead of eating fish. The male maid was asked to bring it right now without lingering. The maid with his dirty face from spilled fish dishes. He can still smile and will prepare the pork fillet. The maid asked again what kind of meat food she wanted to cook. Jelly immediately sighed. This maid has been working here for a long time but does not know what Jelly wants. This really made Jelly's anger peak. The servant has been providing services for about 30 years now in this house. Moreover, The servant's body has started to age. As she said, the maid has been working for a very long time. Whatever Jelly wanted, the servant should have understood without asking any questions. Jelly thought today was very important for the saint's training, so Jelly wanted the maid to cook as usual. The maid would instruct the chef to cook the meat well done. Jelly seemed to think of something and beat this maid. The maid immediately asked Jelly for forgiveness for his wrong words. Jelly immediately stepped on the maid's head using a shoe. Jelly doesn't accept it because eating raw food before training will have a bad effect. The maid endured the pain caused by Jelly's shoes stepping on his head. Jelly laughed and told him that this was an offense. Jelly would give the maid the punishment he deserved. When she finished stepping on his head, the maid asked Jelly to wait a moment before giving the punishment. Jelly didn't care about anything. 3 soldiers were immediately summoned and brought the maid to be punished today. The maid asked for help from the others. But they who were there could not do anything. If they took action to defend him, they would be punished. Jelly walked and looked at the other male workers. Jelly saw one of the men and told him not to forget to bring her food to the punishment room. Jelly really likes meat that still has fresh blood. All the servants who worked there immediately bowed their heads before Jelly and were ready to carry out her orders. Jelly is the only daughter of an aspic noble family. So far, Jelly has received a good education since childhood, but because Jelly was too spoiled by her parents. Now, Jelly grows into a cruel saint to everyone who breaks her rules. On the other hand, there is an atmosphere that shows the state of the slime village, precisely a forest. In this village so cool than many trees, there is one slime that lives and can talk. Slime is on the side of the river and he is very hungry. While on the side of the river, Slime saw a caterpillar on a green leaf. Incidentally, the slime was hungry and immediately caught the leaf caterpillar quickly. Slime immediately ate it, and the taste of the caterpillar was so delicious in the mouth. Plus, the slime is starving, so anything will taste good. After the slime finished eating the leafworm, from a distance, he saw a female human figure coming. For humans to come to the slime village was extremely rare. Humans can be believed to be able to kill terrible dragons. So, slimes remember the village head's words when they see humans must be careful. Humans can commit heinous acts against creatures. Slime, who saw the human, decided to just hide rather than harm itself. Near the tree, slimes still pay attention to human movement. Even slimes consider humans a very lucky race because they do not experience hunger. Humans also have a very large house to live in and many rooms in it. Slime can only contemplate himself get a life with a form like this. Slime and human life are indeed very different. Slimes must live secretly in the forest, while humans can move freely anywhere. Slime imagined when he became human. Then he doesn't need to bother looking for food every day. The woman apparently saw the slime on the rock, with friendly Lumiere immediately greeted. Slime is still busy thinking about himself, who will still be like this. Slime also cannot be angry with anyone for this fate. When he realized, Slime immediately panicked because this human knew him. Lumiere apologized to the slime for coming by surprise, but she asked the slime to be calm and not to worry. Lumiere did not expect to meet a slime creature in the forest. Lumiere showed that she was also a slime, knowing that the slime was very surprised because it could turn into a human like this. Lumiere asked if the slime really wanted to know how to change shape into a human like her. Slime is so enthusiastic and wants to know what methods are done. The method used is to suck human blood. Slime convinced Lumiere whether such a method was really effective. Lumiere further explained that after sucking blood and entering a fresh corpse, Lumiere shared her experience that human life is very cool. After trying the food, it is guaranteed that slimes will not want to return to the forest and want to remain human. Lumiere gave jerky to the slime to eat. Slime sees the shape of jerky like a sliced tree bark. Slime will try to eat jerky for the first time. When eaten, it tastes very good indeed. Slime asked if humans eat food like this every day. Lumiere immediately chuckled and said this food was nothing. The human world is filled with a variety of foods much more delicious. Then, Lumiere introduced his name to the slime so he could know. If the slime is interested in the human world, then Lumiere will not mind to invite him and meet someday. Lumiere immediately said goodbye to go to the slime. After leaving this forest, the slime still remembers the image of the taste of jerky is really very good. He just found out that slime can become human. At night, many stars shine and the moon is very bright. The position of the slime is right under the moon. Above the tree also lives the owl that waits for the forest of the slime village. Slime has the intention to become human, in accordance with what has been conveyed by Lumiere. When wanting to become human, slimes must suck blood and enter the body of a fresh corpse. Slime wanders at night and will look for fresh corpses. When he was trying to find a slime, he found a human-like figure wearing armor lying under a tree. Slime will check the condition when seen this part of the human head has become a dry skull. Corpses like this can no longer be used. Slimes must be able to get fresh corpses. Slime will search and go elsewhere. Slime is under a large ravine and hopes to find fresh corpses around it. When it entered, the slime found it difficult to find fresh corpses. Plus, it's getting late at night. Slime was desperate in this search mission. After that, a male human figure came and brought a helpless woman. The man immediately threw the body, which was thought to be a corpse, into the ravine. The curious slime will see firsthand. Secretly, slime must check first. Slime turned out to see a very beautiful female human. The clothes used are very nice and have glowing stones. Her hair is smooth and dry. This human is the jelly of a noble princess. Slime also knew that this was a noble man who was told by Lumiere. Slime wondered why this woman could be thrown into the abyss by men. Slime didn't want to think about it. He immediately climbed onto Jelly's body and realized she wasn't moving at all. Jelly's body smells like poison. Slime did not hear her heartbeat and her breathing was absent. But Jelly's body is still warm and not frozen at all. This shows that the slime has managed to find a fresh corpse. Slime was so excited to be human by using this noble body. Slime immediately remembered that Lumiere said he had to suck human blood. But slimes must remove the poison in Jelly's body first. The poison in Jelly's body is really deadly, so naturally it can make him lose his life. This poison will have no effect on the slime. Furthermore, the slime will make the poison in this vomit so that it can be clean. After all the toxins are removed by the slime, now the slime will refer to the heart. The heart organ has a big influence so that humans can stay alive well. Humans and slimes themselves have differences in heart movement. Slime will make its heart beat first. Slimes have tried to try it but can't. Slime already looks tired because it hasn't succeeded at all. Slime decided to sleep for a while so it could focus and have energy. The next day, the atmosphere of the slime village was morning again. Slime slowly woke up from sleep. Slime felt her body was still heavy porch and very thirsty. Slime went straight to a river. When she wanted to drink, Slime reflected in the water and saw her face like a human who had died last night. Slime realized when she was now not a small creature anymore. The action taken by the slime last night turned out to be well done. Now her body has turned into a real human being. Moreover, the appearance of this dead human looks very beautiful. Now she has successfully completed this first stage. She was rolling on the ground for happiness. But she thought it was not the time to have too much fun like this. She became dizzy because she had to be able to imitate the original human accurately. In her mind, Slime remembers that this woman named Jelly likes to give punishment to the servants who work in her place in a very sadistic way. Slime immediately thought this human was really very crazy. If the slime imitated Jelly, then she would be hated by everyone. Even slimes think that Jelly used to be a bad human. Slime is very confused in this situation what she should do. Lumiere herself advised that if you don't want to go back to being a slime, then you have to do that. Slime becomes indecisive because being evil there will be many people who want to kill. Therefore, the slime that lives in this jelly body does die from being killed using deadly poison. If she's always careless, then everyone will know she is a slime, not a real human. Slime was very desperate. No matter what, she would still be killed. Slime looked back at her face in the water while thinking of another way. Slime has an idea that now he will not imitate Jelly. What will be done is the opposite of Jelly's formerly bad attitude. Now the slime must turn it into a good, noble princess. If the slime can make itself not hated by others, then this method will succeed in making Slime remain an immortal human being in Jelly's body. Jelly's personality when she was alive was indeed too severe. Not only nobility, but Jelly works as a saint. Slime imagines herself later to be a saint who is loved by many people from everywhere. All this slime does to get a safe and ideal life. Indeed, everything is difficult to live. But the slime believes she can definitely do her best. Slime's determination this time is already around to live as a human. Slime is bored and tired of being herself who can't do much. Moreover, living in the forest in a hidden way and very difficult to find food. Slime immediately walked and moved her body to become human. It turned out to be so difficult to walk. When walking, she is still unbalanced. This is the first time she has become human, so it is very natural not to get used to it. She will try to step using the right foot and pull the left foot. But when practicing it, she immediately slipped and fell to the ground. She fell to the ground and thought that rolling was easier than walking on both feet. Moving her legs and hands should require regular practice so that she can walk like a human. She would try to stand and walk while carrying a piece of wood to support her body so she wouldn't fall. When she tried again, she fell and went into the river. Her legs and body were so painful and cold. When feeling pain means the slime has really become human. It turns out that human skin is too fragile, so it's easy to fall. When she saw her hand, there was a blood clot and slime. She saw the blood become transparent. Then her true identity will be clearly seen and discovered. So she made sure she couldn't get hurt at all in front of people. She immediately got up and picked up some wood to help herself walk. She must be able to walk naturally at all costs. Now she was able to walk far enough, and the view in front of her was very good. The sight of human eyes is really very beautiful. When she was a slime, she could only see the flow of mana. She felt the breeze was very good. Now that it was night, she stood looking at the beautiful sky. Then she saw the stars at night so bright and shiny. She was so happy to be human now. After passing a fairly cold night, she woke up and saw from the distance there was a place of human population, precisely in a city. She walked to get there and saw firsthand the daily activities of humans. She can also walk well without the help of a stick. She had arrived in a city with many humans. She was completely mesmerized by the human world. When she saw many humans walking around, she saw a sharp object used by soldiers. When she saw it, she immediately hid because she was afraid it would hurt. She must avoid anything related to sharp objects. The thing she didn't want was for the human soldier to find her. She had to be careful. After the human soldier left, she immediately came out and realized she was already human and still felt scared. She saw a mother and her child, and it turned out that humans were very happy when their heads were stroked. The little boy saw she and called her a beautiful sister. Her mother immediately turned to her. When the mother looked with a scared look while saying Miss Jelly. She didn't know why the mother left immediately and was frightened to see her. Everyone who knew immediately gathered and saw Jelly come back to life. When confirming that it was really Jelly, everyone immediately ran scared, and no one dared to get closer. She just realized that humans here really hated the figure of Jelly at that time. The road to being liked by humans is really very long. She must do something to improve the name Jelly, which has been labeled bad by many people. She tried to remember from this body to make sure this building was Jelly's house first. Seeing this house is really big, magnificent, and spacious, she will look for her residence first. The servants who were there saw Jelly directly and made them very surprised. Jelly saw they were very surprised to see her. As far as the servants knew, Miss Jelly went to practice. She felt that she was not natural in this case, but it was still safe because she was not caught. When they realized she was really Miss Jelly, they immediately said welcome, although in their hearts they were already very panicked and nervous. One of the maids said that Miss Jelly was tired from the long journey. She hasn't said anything yet, just amazed and focused on this luxurious house. Everyone who works in this house immediately welcomes her and bows their bodies in neat rows. She had just discovered that being a nobleman was highly respected. One of the old maids said that Miss Jelly's training seemed so hard. They would immediately prepare her bathroom so that she could clean up and rest. She was really confused about what to answer. On the one hand, she couldn't let anyone know that she was actually a slime living in a human body. The servants would think she was acting weird. She must quickly be able to leave here so as not to get a lot of questions. Jelly replied that she was still tired and just wanted to sleep. Jelly felt herself saying that in a very stiff tone. She will smile sweetly at all of them. When they saw Miss Jelly smile like that, they were very surprised. They didn't expect Miss Jelly to give a smile. All this time, Miss Jelly had never smiled like that at the servants. They immediately prostrated themselves to ask for forgiveness and would prepare Miss Jelly's room immediately. In her heart, she felt it would be safe. They all immediately moved to prepare Miss Jelly's change of clothes. When she arrived in this room, Jelly was very happy because the mattress was so soft and comfortable. It feels very different when sleeping on the grass. When she was lying down, she didn't expect it in the city. Everyone who saw her was really so shocked that they ran around and didn't want to come close at all. Jelly's figure is really hated by everyone. She remembers when in the forest at night when looking for fresh corpses. There was a man wearing a maid's uniform too, and disposed of Miss Jelly's body. Instantly, Jelly woke up and suspected that one of Jelly Lady's killers was the maid in this house. This time, she will analyze the situation and find out who killed and administered the deadly poison. Miss Jelly was previously a saint who was going to the mountain for training. In the middle of training, a man wearing a uniform poisoned Jelly and threw her body into the ravine. The culprit was one of the servants in this house. She couldn't remember his face at all, but the uniform he wore was very clearly that of a servant. She also didn't know why she couldn't remember the perpetrator's face well. There were still many other problems to be faced. She didn't know if she could become the saint that everyone loved. If the situation is bad like this, everyone is scared to see Jelly. She decided to sleep and think again tomorrow. Tonight she was tired, and traveling from the forest to the city was very tiring. The atmosphere at the Duke Aspic guest house in the morning was so bright. Birds were sitting at the window of Jelly's room, while Jelly was still sleeping soundly in her room. A maid was standing in front of her door. The maid knocked on the door and said Jelly's morning meal would be ready soon. Hearing the servant's voice and the knock on the door, Jelly immediately woke up and rubbed her eyes. Jelly immediately got out of bed and looked in the mirror. When she saw herself as a human, Jelly immediately screamed loudly, making the maid worried. The maid forcibly opened the door and joined in the panic. The maid confirmed what was happening to Jelly in the room. The maid saw Jelly looking in the mirror. She just remembered that she had become human. When she saw the maid enter, Jelly said it was okay and thanked her with a smile. The maid was startled when Jelly said thank you. The maid hoped that she had not heard wrong. With nervousness and amazement, the maid said good morning to Jelly. Her purpose in coming was to ask about this morning's meal, meat or fish. Jelly happily wanted to eat the meat menu. After that, Jelly changed her clothes and sat at the dining table in a calm state. While the chef was still cooking meat for Jelly, the male and female maid lined up and saw Jelly. The meat meal was cooked and immediately given to Jelly. When she saw the meat, Jelly was happy because it was cooked. She can't wait to eat this delicious meat. But when eating, Jelly must remain careful because she was presented with a small knife and fork to cut the meat. Jelly did not forget to say goodbye to all the maid who were watching her. Jelly was very happy to eat this meat. The maid was surprised to see Jelly's behavior was considered strange and not like usual. Jelly will eat this meat until it runs out because it feels really very good in the mouth. Jelly is also very rare and has never even eaten like this while being a slime in the forest. The taste of meat is even better when combined with additional sauce. After the food runs out, Jelly will say something to the chef. The chef's face immediately panicked because he was afraid something was wrong and got punished. In his chef's mind, he remembered Jelly's behavior, who liked to give cruel punishments. Even all the servants will be finished off by him. The chef himself has seen many servants suffer from disabilities, and lately it has gotten worse, especially when a servant who worked for 30 years could no longer be helped. The chef is very thoughtful, and he feels uneasy. The maid here has also given the nickname to Miss Jelly as an evil woman. The chef also does not know what his mistake is today, even though the meat cooked according to the request so far. The chef would not be willing to leave his son and wife alone if he had to die at the hands of Miss Jelly. The chef immediately prostrated himself, begging forgiveness to Jelly for the mistakes made. But Jelly immediately laughed and confirmed that the chef had cooked meat that tasted very good. The taste of the meat is much better than worms. All who were there were immediately shocked to hear Jelly's words. The chef did not think he had just been praised. While working here, the chef always gets vile insults from Jelly. Other maids said this chef almost died, but they did not expect this chef to survive and not be given punishment. Then another maid brought today's cake for Jelly. As she stepped up and was about to give it to Jelly, the maid slipped and the cake fell on Jelly's face. The maid was very shocked and frightened. The maid was sure that she would get punished for this fatal mistake. The maid immediately cried and bowed her head in fear. Jelly immediately cleaned her face, which was hit by the cake. The maid apologized for her negligence. Jelly hasn't said anything yet and looks towards his affected shirt. All the maid who were there were immediately very afraid because the maid who brought the cake would definitely be executed. Suddenly, Jelly tasted the cake very well. Jelly asked the maid to bring the cake again. The maid was very shocked and did not expect Jelly not to be angry. The maid will bring back the cake that Jelly asked for. But Jelly asked for it later, not necessarily now. Jelly asked the maid if her leg was okay because it had fallen. The maid said she was fine. Jelly feels calm and grateful that nothing happened. Jelly can't wait to have the cake brought back. Jelly is also very attentive now. She asked the maid to be careful so that it doesn't happen again like before. The male maid are increasingly suspicious because since returning from training, Jelly's attitude is very different. In terms of eating and everything looks different. They are also afraid to interfere in this matter, but they don't want to believe it right away because Jelly likes to cheat. Pretend to be good, but later will become an evil and cruel person. Jelly could hear what the servant was talking about him. Jelly has now completely changed. While eating this cake, Jelly thought that they maid and others really hated Shi's attitude in the past. Jelly will turn this situation around so that she will be loved by everyone. She has eaten a lot today. In her heart, Jelly can't smile when making eye contact with anyone. The basis of human relationships can begin with a sweet smile. A smile can indicate that someone is feeling fine without any problems. Jelly called one of the maid. She will ask about the main course, whether it's cooked or not. The maid was very overwhelmed to serve Jelly today because she ate so much. Jelly was like a very hungry person. Jelly was immediately given the service and food as desired. On the other hand, some maid immediately became suspicious due to Jelly's changes. One of the servants felt very unlucky that the nasty Miss Jelly was still alive. Then Jelly came back to this house. The maid thinks Jelly has committed a fraud. This is because the plan to kill Jelly did not work out well, even though some of these servants have made all the means so that Jelly dies. But due to being tempted by the words of an act of murder, this will be successful. But in fact it is not. This male servant was very upset in his heart. He was not lying. He was so sure that Jelly had been killed and died. But now Jelly is back with a strange attitude. Jelly looks gentle and not angry anymore. This male servant thinks the mysterious man is lying. But this evil maid still wants Jelly to die so that his mission succeeds. Inside the aspic house, there were servant girls working to dust the windows. One of the maid who had been working for a long time was blowing something in her mouth towards the window, and then the dew came up and asked the new maid to re-clean. But the new maid was tired and had already repeated it 5 times. The senior maid was angry and had just started working here and was already complaining. Then the other maid thought it was useless. The new maid only apologized for her actions. This new maid decided to work at the Jelly place. She is a girl who is so kind and very devoted to her parents. She had to put up with this serving job. If she didn't work, her mother's medicine couldn't be bought. During this time, the mother has been sickly at home and cannot do any activities anymore. The new maid will work well and repeat to clean the windows of this house properly. The senior maid immediately approached the new maid named Erin. The maid treats Erin with strict instructions to stay safe here. If Miss Jelly found even 1 grain of dust still attached, then Erin would be severely scolded. So the maid who already knew the nature of Jelly did not want bad things to happen again. Bad news about the maid at that time had already surfaced in the community. Erin herself had heard of the maid here before being severely tortured just because there was dew on the window. The punishment was not only physical but also mental. Until now, she did not know how the maid who was punished just because the window was still dewy was doing. The senior maid also told Aaron that the tree in front was the grave of the dead maid. The tree grew when the punished servant left this house. So now Aaron has understood the explanation about her work here, so Aaron must repeat the cleaning at least 5 times. Aaron, with her scared face, immediately agreed. Incidentally, the maid in charge of assisting Jelly had run away. So the one who will replace her is Aaron. 2 senior maid congratulated Aaron. Aaron was asked to go to Jelly right now. When she arrived in front of Miss Jelly's room, Aaron knocked on her door and called out to Jelly that it was morning. Jelly was still sleeping soundly on her bed. Jelly is still very sleepy and wants to sleep again. Suddenly her body falls to the floor. When Jelly woke up, there was already Aaron in front of her. Aaron said, "Excuse me first," so she wouldn't get scolded. When waking up, Jelly always forgets that he is human. The senior maid told Aaron to kowtow to Jelly. Aaron did kowtow before Jelly. Then the maid gave Jelly a beating blade. The maid explained that, as usual, Jelly would beat the maid who disturbed her sleep. Jelly was immediately shocked because she felt that action was unnecessary. Jelly told Aaron to stand up again, and there was no need to kowtow. Aaron was very happy and thanked Jelly. In her heart, Jelly was very surprised. For Jelly, the act of hitting people is not natural, especially just because her sleep was disturbed. The maid was immediately surprised to see that Jelly didn't want to do it, but this hitting action is very normal for Jelly to do in the past, so naturally many people hated Jelly's cruel actions. After that action was not done, the maid introduced Aaron. This time and the next, Aaron would be accompanying Jelly today. Aaron introduced her name to Jelly as she was the new maid. Jelly talks to Aaron and seems to be working for the first time. Aaron tells her that she only arrived at this house yesterday. Aaron bowed her body and honestly explained that she still lacked experience, but Aaron will try to work well. Aaron once again said hello to Jelly. Aaron in front of Jelly was so nervous and afraid to speak. Jelly has realized it herself. People who rarely communicate with her to experience fears like this. For Jelly, this is really bad, but this is a good opportunity for Jelly to get closer to Aaron. Jelly has decided that today he wants to be close to a maid named Aaron. After Jelly has bathed and dressed neatly, Jelly sat in the garden outside and Aaron prepared tea for her lady. Jelly looks at the tea made by Aaron. It turns out that the duan is dried. This made the tea smell very good. Aaron stirred the tea evenly and poured it into Jelly's glass. Transfer the aroma with the color to hot water and then drink it. Humans do have good ideas in any aspect. Jelly felt no regret for choosing her life as a human. The tea was ready to drink. Jelly noticed that the tea looked very luxurious and must taste good. Jelly will try to drink the tea. This is the first time Jelly has felt this tea drink is bitter. Aaron was very worried about the taste. Jelly tries to drink it again, even though the idea of making this tea is from humans. Humans can also make meat with delicious flavors. The taste of the tea is indeed bitter, but after being infused, there is a good taste inside, the content. Of course, this flavor is different from meat. Maybe Jelly is just not used to drinking tea. Aaron was very nervous and asked if this tea was not to Jelly's taste. She didn't mean it that way. Jelly felt that she wanted to drink this tea all the time. Behind the bitter taste of the tea, there is a delicious flavor that is difficult to describe in words. So Jelly rated Aaron's tea so good on her tongue. Aaron was immediately relieved if the tea was good. Jelly smiled and thanked Aaron for her tea. But Aaron didn't want to because it was appropriate for the maid to thank her. Aaron said that her mother at home always praised her homemade tea. Then her 2 younger siblings also immediately said it was delicious. Aaron was so happy to hear praise from her mother and 2 little siblings. According to Jelly, it was one of the beautiful memories of the family. Jelly already feels closer to Aaron if she continues to talk like this. Aaron continued to say that she had been taking care of her mother. All the housework was done by Aaron, which earned her praise. Therefore, Aaron decided to work and become a maid where Jelly lived. Aaron had no other talents, so she decided to become a maid. Aaron was pessimistic and unsure if she could continue working. Aaron's seniors have been scolding her non-stop since she came here, but now the pessimism is starting to fade. Aaron has now begun to confidently say Miss Jelly's praise when drinking her tea for the first time. Jelly thinks this is very good indeed. In her heart, Jelly felt that she was getting closer to Aaron. Jelly wanted to know how Erin's mother praised her. Erin will remember it. The thing her mother did was stroke Erin's head. Jelly remembered when she went to this city to see her mother stroking her child's head. Jelly got up from her seat and approached Erin. Jelly immediately stroked Erin's head in order to get praise and affection from an employer. Jelly praises that Erin's hard work has good results. Jelly will guarantee this. In this way, Erin will definitely consider Jelly as a good human being. Erin did not expect her head to be stroked like her mother did. Suddenly, Erin cried hysterically. Jelly immediately panicked and asked if there was a sore spot. Jelly thought badly that Erin hated her now. Erin just wants to apologize. After drinking tea in the outside garden is finished, Erin immediately left without giving an explanation, then went inside and met with other maid. According to Erin, Jelly was very kind and the rumors about her ugliness were not true. The senior maid asked about Jelly. Erin said she was very pleasant. Erin wanted to be with Jelly forever. Seeing Erin's excitement, the senior maid was not expecting it and had a cynical look on his face. The senior maid who has known Jelly's true nature all this time is a cruel figure. So tomorrow Erin will be on duty again like before. They as senior maid want to see for themselves how long Erin will last. Erin will gladly accept the assignment again. Erin returned to excitement and expressed her gratitude for all this. The two senior maids were immediately surprised to see Erin's behavior. They suspected that Erin's brain was wrong and a little abnormal. At night, Jelly is in her room and covers herself using a thick blanket. Jelly is still thinking about Erin, who is crying and has not explained what the problem is. Tonight, Jelly's mind is not calm because Erin must hate her. It turns out that being close to humans is very difficult. In the morning, Jelly woke up and ate today's meat menu. The chef thanked Jelly for waiting for his cooking. The chef invites Jelly to eat his special steak with 3 layers of meat. The meat steak illustrates the delicacy of high-quality meat and the chef's passion. Jelly began to eat her meat steak with relish. The chef also added decorations to the meat, namely the royal flag. Seeing this meat dish, Jelly is happy to eat it. Eating meat is a satisfaction for Jelly to feel satisfied. The chef and Erin were happy to see Jelly eating. Erin quickly wiped Jelly's dirty mouth at the edges. The other two maids saw Erin's behavior was really brave to do that. Even the two of them did not dare to do it if it was not in order. Jelly thanked Erin for being so understanding with here. Erin was very happy to be able to do well. One of the maids said Erin was a super maid. In their eyes, Jelly was not angry at all, and even smiled sweetly. Even the chef who cooked strangely was not given any punishment. The chef looked very confident in serving his meat dish. Even Jelly's face is like a woman in love until her cheeks blush. So naturally, the chef was very confident. Then there were the 3 male maid who were still questioning whether it was really Miss Jelly or not. It had been a week since Jelly had returned from training, and her attitude had changed dramatically. But one of them did not want to be fooled anymore. Jelly could have just pretended to be good to the maid. At that time, there was an incident of a male maid accidentally dropping his food fork. The maid immediately wanted to take a replacement for his fork, but Jelly told the maid to bring her fork to her. When held by Jelly, the fork was heavy, making it hard to use. Jelly asked to hold out the maid's hand in front of him. Quickly, Jelly immediately stabbed the maid's hand using the fork. The maid was in pain and fell down. Meanwhile, Jelly just laughed at the actions she took. In the pain of his hand, the maid was about to get a lighter fork, but Jelly stepped on the injured hand using her high heels. The maid could not bear the pain that was so painful. Jelly didn't just do that. She went to the dining table and took a small knife. For Jelly, this is an offense, so it is mandatory to be punished. The 3 male servants behind Jelly called out. They were afraid that Jelly would do more than that when they looked at the 3 servants. Jelly was not happy that they dared to disturb her. They immediately asked for forgiveness for being disrespectful in this case. They were afraid that the maid would die if hurt with a knife. Jelly would not make such a mistake. If Jelly really wanted to kill Surely, she would not listen to his screams anymore. After remembering that terrible incident, the 3 servants still think that Jelly is an evil woman who does not respect human life. As long as Jelly's body is still the same, her attitude will not change. One of the servants near Jelly named Will is a murderer. In the heart of the maid, he will do the same thing, and it feels like he doesn't need to think about his image anymore. In his suit, the will servant took a necklace and the pendant contained a photo of Emma. While staring at the necklace for a long time, even though he was alone. But he will do this. For the sake of Miss Jelly, the will servant is willing to do anything. Even the will maid is already thinking of this as Jelly's revenge plan. She will let Jelly laugh while she can. The will maid will also not be able to run away anymore because her decision has been completely made. The will servant will kill Jelly as an evil woman, and until now, there is no other choice. The atmosphere of the aspic residence of Jelly's house at night. Jelly is sitting in front of the bedroom mirror. Erin is combing Jelly's hair. Erin told Jelly that her family was so panicked when she decided to work away from home. Erin apologized that she had told Jelly too often. Jelly could only smile at Erin, who loved to vent. Jelly had no problem at all. She asked Erin to continue her story. In her heart, Jelly always thought of how to apologize to Erin after the crying incident. But what Jelly saw, Erin followed her more often. Compared to the other humans in this house, it's true that humans are very difficult to understand. Jelly really hopes Erin doesn't hate her at all. After finishing combing Jelly's hair, Erin will leave first. Erin said goodnight to Jelly, who was going to bed soon. After that, Jelly, who was sitting on the mattress, looked towards the window. Jelly looks in the mirror and plays with her face so that it looks very funny. Jelly is now getting used to this body. Humans have complex bodies. While looking at his face in the window, Jelly felt that the small wind at night was very cold. Jelly went to his shirt and took a knife. Jelly would try to cut her hand and transparent blood would come out. Instantly, Jelly feels herself a little dizzy because of this. After that, Jelly plays with the blood clot. The wound on Jelly's hand is imprinted, and this takes a long time. These two blood-derived slime blobs asked Jelly to guard the doors and windows tonight. But Jelly felt strange that her orders were completely unheard. The little slime said it was because Jelly had become human. Then one of her slimes wanted to eat meat. Jelly felt this was a troublesome burden for her. Jelly agreed to the wishes of these two little slimes, but they were asked to guard the doors and windows. If something happens, then these two slimes must tell Jelly as soon as possible. Two small slimes immediately moved against the door and then one against the window. Jelly felt everything was safe. Jelly will sleep peacefully, now that his room is safe. Jelly already feels that life being human is very comfortable. Jelly threw her body on the mattress. Jelly hopes that tonight and beyond, there will be no more strange events. A few minutes later, Jelly unconsciously fell asleep so soundly. Then at midnight, an evil will servant will launch his action to kill Jelly again. Then will servant brought a blanket. There is one maid who sees Will tonight still busy working. The maid will give the reason the night is so cold, so Will would give an extra blanket to Miss Jelly. His co-workers encourage him. After that, they both separated from each other. The maid will arrive at the door of Miss Jelly's room. He will kill Jelly tonight without having to think about anything else. This evil-intentioned will servant did not knock on the door. Instead, he tried to open Jelly's door by himself. Instantly, the door to Jelly's room opened. Light appeared from the direction of the outside lights. Slime, who was near the door, was immediately shocked. Slime saw an object under the blanket brought by the will servant. Jelly was still fast asleep. The will servant bravely approached Jelly's body. In his heart, he said that she was the daughter of the devil. Jelly's sleeping face is considered a saint, but her heart is very rotten. The slime that was at the door earlier immediately slipped under the mattress. Slime saw that this man was a servant, but Slime suspects what this maid will do at night to enter Jelly's room. Quickly, Jelly's slime will wake up the body first. The maid will still remember the incident and will not hesitate to kill Jelly tonight. But while in Jelly's room, he suddenly felt weak. The maid will be sure that a little more will definitely kill Jelly. Under the blanket, there is already a sharp knife. He will stick this sharp knife into Jelly's heart. Then that way, Jelly will die. Suddenly, Jelly's eyes opened wide and looked sharply at the will maid. This evil maid was immediately shocked and panicked. until he wanted to scream but didn't, and closed his mouth so that another maid wouldn't hear. The Will maid was immediately nervous and broke out in a cold sweat. Nervously and full of fear, he said that tonight was very cold. In his heart, the Will maid did not expect Jelly to wake up at all. Jelly, with her innocence, agreed that the night air was very cold. The maid immediately changed and calmed her down. The maid will give a blanket to Jelly in addition. Even with his lie, the maid will be ready to accept any punishment for having the audacity to enter Jelly's bedroom. But Jelly said she would not give any punishment. Precisely in this case, maid like Will deserve praise. Jelly, if she remembers correctly, his name is Will. In his heart, Will did not feel at all happy to receive this praise. Will makes sure whether Jelly has really changed, but he still doesn't believe that Jelly has changed. In the heart of Will as a servant is still peaking, wanting to kill Jelly. This will do as a way to help Emma. When Jelly looked towards the window, Will suddenly pull out his knife. The slime in the window immediately panicked, seeing Will commit a crime. The slime that was already behind the vase immediately dropped it. Then the sound sounded very loud. Jelly looked towards Will and held the knife that would stab towards her. Quickly, Jelly immediately gave resistance. Jelly was so lucky if the slim boy didn't tell her maybe Jelly would die tonight. In this situation, Jelly must be careful. If his hand hits the knife, surely her true identity will be discovered. Jelly will try to avoid this knife and make the maid will fall. The maid will immediately roll around in pain. According to Jelly, humans are weak and in the future she must be more careful. When Will gets back up, he is still pursuing and will kill Jelly until he succeeds. Jelly could not remain silent and would take action. Although this he did would have a painful effect. Jelly immediately hit the body of the Will maid who attacked her. Instantly, the maid will be knocked down again. The knife in the maid's hand will be immediately taken by Jelly and secured. Jelly accidentally attacked the Will maid tightly. Jelly immediately got off in his mattress and held the Will maid's shoulder to make sure his condition was now. Suddenly, Will said that he had thrown Jelly into the ravine. So the Will servant is very sure that the daughter of a devil like Will is dead in the forest there. Knowing that, Jelly remembered, it was the Will servant who had the heart to poison Jelly's body. The sound of knocking on the door in Jelly's room, the servant heard a loud noise from inside. The maid wanted to make sure that Jelly was okay for the night. Jelly was sure that the maid would be arrested if the others found out. This was actually an opportunity for Jelly, but it didn't feel right to her. When the maid opened the door slightly, Jelly quickly closed it again. Jelly said she was fine, so the maid doesn't need to worry. Jelly said that the loud noise was because the flower vase was nudged and fell. The maid will immediately be surprised to see different actions and words. The old maid felt calm because Jelly was fine. Jelly thanked the old maid for paying attention to her. Jelly opened the door to his room again to make sure the old maid left. After that, Jelly closed the door to his room and sighed. Now, Jelly asked the Will servant to tell her. Jelly wants to know why the Will servant dared to do all this. The Will servant immediately took the necklace in his suit and gave it to Jelly. She doesn't understand why with this necklace. Inside the necklace was a photo of Emma, his sister, that the Will servant had told her about before. The Will servant is sure Jelly must have forgotten about this. The Will servant was promised a favor for his Emma's sister. The way the Will servant has to do is kill Jelly. She doesn't understand what help the Will servant means for his sister. The maid will ask if Jelly has remembered or not about it. Jelly doesn't remember anything at all. Inside her is not a real Jelly, but a slime who wants to feel alive to be a human. Shows the atmosphere when Jelly was alive and became the evil woman. Jelly is meeting and talking to the Will maid. Jelly asked what the Will maid would talk about in a quiet place like this. The Will maid begged forgiveness for his impudence. Will currently has someone who is experiencing pain. When the Will maid wanted to continue his story, he felt so nervous to tell the truth. The Will maid bowed his body and was willing to do anything to help his sister. The Will maid was really pleading because his sister needed Jelly's help as a saint. After hearing this, Jelly felt interested. She will consider if the Will servant can attract her attention. Jelly immediately presents the servant who is already weak and unable to scream anymore. Jelly tells Will to dispose of this woman's servant. Jelly has remembered that the servant will have promised to do anything for his sister. Jelly will be willing to heal the will servant's sister. But if the will servant can clean up all this, the will servant asked what crimes had been committed by this helpless servant. Jelly told the crime that was committed because the window that was cleaned still had fog. Jelly really hates people who are incompetent when cleaning. Jelly confirmed whether the maid will be able to clean up all this properly. The maid will already have a sharp knife in his hand. He will be ready to do according to orders from Jelly. She can't wait for the will servant in her room after all this is done. The maid will have to report immediately when all this is done. The maid is still breathing and coughing. The will maid really didn't have the heart to hurt her, but the maid requested that she be killed. The will servant seemed hesitant to do this heinous thing, but for all the promises given by Jelly. Then the will servant will stab and kill the weak woman in front of him. But the will servant did not kill her and untied the rope on her hands and carried the maid. Seeing the treatment of Will, who did not commit murder, the maid was very surprised as to why Will undid his intention. Secretly, Will didn't want her to talk and pretended to be dead. That way the lady's maid fell asleep again like a dead person. Then Will planned to keep her maid uniform and use a coverall. The servant will be sure that she can escape through this door. But she is confused about where to escape. According to the plan, the servant will have written a letter of recommendation by his friend in the next country. In this way, she could start a new life there to be safer. She accepted the paper given by Will's servant. She didn't expect Will to do something like this just for someone like her. She was afraid that Miss Jelly would find out what Will was doing. But the Will servant didn't want her to worry and told her to calm down. The Will servant already had other plans. Will was very confident that he would succeed in his plan. She is very grateful to Will for sacrificing himself to help, especially now that the situation in the Aspic house is bad, and every wrong servant is immediately given cruel punishment. She couldn't say many things to Will because it was too good. Will opened the door and she immediately rushed to escape from the Aspic house area. Without realizing it, Jelly saw them both at the window. While the Will servant did not realize this action was seen by Jelly. Will servant immediately took a hoe and dug the ground. Will dug the ground until it was deep and could bury Shige's clothes. Will's body was sweating because he did this alone. Then 2 other female servants saw Will burying. They kept an eye on Will, knowing he was being watched by the other maid, after Will buried his clothes. Will planted a small tree on the grave of the clothes. Will's servants deliberately did this so that the 2 gossiping servants would see him. This will later lead to a gossip about the buried servant after doing all this, and the work is done. The maid Will went inside and intended to report everything with Jelly. The Will maid was sure that after this, his sister would be healed. The Will servant knocked on the door and informed that the order had been completed. The Will servant knocked on the door repeatedly. In his heart, the Will servant was very confident that his mission this time would succeed well. Jelly told the Will servant to go inside. The Will maid opened the door slowly and stepped inside. Jelly was waiting for the Will maid, then said this was good work. Jelly asked if the work was difficult. The Will steward chuckled and said that the work was very easy for him. The Will servant will confirm the discussion earlier. Jelly emphasized that a promise must be kept well. Jelly took a medicine in the drawer and asked Will to give this medicine to his sister. With Jelly's medicine, his sister will definitely be helped. The servant Will's face was very happy, and he thanked her profusely. With this holy water medicine, his sister is sure to be cured quickly. Jelly did not say that it was holy water. The maid Will's face immediately turned anxious. He didn't know what Jelly gave him. With a scary smile, Jelly said it was poison. When drinking the poison, Will's sister will definitely be saved from suffering in this world, then live peacefully in a peaceful world. Will's servant was immediately frightened and panicked. Jelly was still laughing with pleasure at all this. Jelly immediately pointed her hand at the Will servant. Someone like Jelly can't be lied to at all. The maid will feel unlucky and think of Jelly as the devil in his heart. Now Jelly would give another order to the Will servant. After the previous story was told, the Will servant in Jelly's room asked if she had remembered or not. Instantly, Jelly was in shock because this was not her. Jelly is confused about what to say about this incident. The maid will return to ask Jelly about the incident the other day. With her nervous expression, Jelly just said yes. She is very upset to be in this body because many problems have not been resolved. Because of the real Jelly, the slime that lives in this corpse body suffers too. After calming down, Jelly immediately saw the pendant necklace that had a photo of Will's servant sister. Jelly just found out that the maid's sister will be experiencing pain until now. Jelly said she had something to ask from the Will maid. This is in exchange for ignoring this incident. Will is curious what Jelly will do now. Jelly sits in front of the Will maid. Jelly wants the Will maid to trust her again. Will was immediately shocked to hear Jelly say that. After the action taken by Will to kill Jelly as revenge, Jelly apologizes and will fix all of this, especially about trust. Jelly wants the Will servant to be able to trust her. Jelly will take action to come directly to Will's house in the village, then see the condition of Emma's sister who is lying sick. The Will servant considers this well. He is afraid that Jelly will commit heinous acts again regardless of who the person is. After thinking well, the Will servant has no other choice. Finally, the Will maid allowed Jelly to visit her house. The Will servant still did not know whether his decision was the right one or not. Will's house is located in the village and stands near the gardens. The Will servant comes from a simple family and is not a wealthy person. When he got home, the Will servant was still thinking about whether Jelly was really a saint or not. On the one hand, he has doubts, and on the other hand, there is a desire to be able to believe again. In his sister's room, Jelly saw that the Will servant did not fully believe. But Jelly is so confused about how to use the power of the saint. Although the body entered by the slime is a saint, Jelly will try it first with the best hope. Jelly immediately concentrated and pointed her hand at Emma's sister. When doing so, Jelly felt unable. The maid will continue to observe the actions taken by Jelly. The maid will be afraid if Jelly does a heinous act in this place. Seeing a situation like this, Jelly will use her own way. Before taking action, Jelly's focus was suddenly distracted when she saw the knife on the tray. Jelly quickly took it and hid the knife behind her body. Jelly slowly slashed her hand until blood came out and then dripped into a pot of water, after making sure everything is in order. Jelly takes the teapot and will clean the disease from Emma's body. The maid will still stare warily. Jelly explained that she would first purify the body with holy water. When he heard the name holy water, the Will maid confirmed that it was indeed real holy water. The Will maid has his own trauma because at that time Jelly gave poison medicine instead of holy water. So, for the current Jelly, it is very natural that the Will servant finds it difficult to believe. Although what is in this teapot is only ordinary water plus Jelly's body, Jelly will not be able to cure his sister if the maid will still not believe it. Jelly took a glass and poured the teapot water into the glass. Jelly immediately drank the water to convince the Will maid that it was not dangerous at all. The water he drank was finished, and Jelly said all this was safe. Jelly offered the Will maid whether he wanted to try it or not. Will didn't want to try the water at all. Jelly gave a glass of water to Emma's sister. Jelly slowly poured the water into Emma's mouth so that it could enter the body. After giving the holy water, Jelly now knows the inside and out of the human body. So Jelly should already know where the disease experienced by Emma is located. But Emma is quite difficult if only using her body parts. Jelly has a new plan, then asks Will for help. Jelly asked Will to bring more water here. Jelly needs it to compress Emma's body heat. Will prepare and collect the water for Jelly. While Will is out, Jelly will do the action. Jelly apologizes to Emma, because later she will heal her again. Jelly will cure Emma's body disease directly using the main part of Jelly, namely slime. Will came and asked because he had made Jelly wait long enough. Will immediately dipped water and compressed his sister's head. After that, Will asked Jelly what he was doing now. Jelly told Will to hold his sister's hand and then pray for a quick recovery. Jelly believes that after praying, Will's body will get better again. Will immediately grabs Emma's hand. With his sadness, Will did not expect if Jelly would be this serious to help cure Emma. Even though the maid will have twice tried to kill him, Will made a promise that he would be able to atone for that sin throughout his life. Will's servant asked Miss Jelly to answer the prayers of people like him. Will's servant really asked for Emma to be saved. Emma is Will's one and only love, so he would never be willing to lose his beloved sister. Beside Will's house, the sunshine and weather today are very beautiful and sunny. Many pigeons are beside Will's house. Then there is a cat who wants to catch and prey on the birds. This makes the birds fly, and some birds enter Sister Emma's room. The open window made Will's eyes become very dazzling. The sunlight that came in shone on Emma's sister's body. From that incident, Emma was slowly able to wake up again. Will was really surprised to see his sister waking up. The Will maid immediately hugged his sister tightly. For Will, this was the most extraordinary miracle of her life. Emma immediately called her brother and asked who the woman standing was. Will, happily introduced in front of her, is Jelly as a saint. Today, Jelly deliberately came and took her busy time to come to the house. Then Jelly cured Emma, who was sick. Jelly's head was visited by one of the white-rumped birds. In this article, we're going to look at how to make the most of your time in the kitchen. We're going to look at how to make the most out of your time in the kitchen. Emma immediately felt it. Now she no longer had difficulty breathing. Will immediately expressed his gratitude to Jelly for all this. Jelly feels lucky today because it has succeeded in healing. Then Jelly managed to hide her true identity as a slime. Now Jelly is starting to be able to live quietly as a human. If you remember again, Jelly had hit Will last night until it flew and hit the wall. Jelly is also afraid if Will knows she is a slime monster. The Will servant, while bowing his head, wanted to say about last night's incident. Jelly is very afraid of what will do. The maid will discuss the power exercised by Jelly last night. He made sure the power came from the saint. With a sweet smile, Jelly said it was the power of the saint. But Jelly asked he to keep it all a secret. So Jelly didn't want everyone to know. That means Will's guess is very correct. Even he thinks he's careless and doesn't know anything. Jelly thinks what happened last night doesn't matter. If Jelly does something strange, then there is a substitute. Jelly wants Will to make sure to stop it, before everyone knows that Jelly is slime. Will had tears in his eyes because he considered Jelly a true saint. The maid will observe that the behavior of Miss Jelly before was strange. Will was so sure that before this Jelly had been possessed by the devil or something now, then successfully purified through her saint training. Now Jelly is back to being herself. Jelly held out her hand, but Will's servant immediately sat down and took Jelly's hand. Will said with sincerity that he would always be willing to serve her. Will give his whole life to Jelly. Jelly's intention was just to shake hands, but Will interpreted it differently. It turns out that for Jelly, which is originally slime, it is very difficult to communicate. On the other hand, it shows the atmosphere in a park. There is a saint named Celestria who is sitting reading. She heard the changes from Jelly after returning from training. The change in Jelly had reached Celestria's ears. The maid who accompanied her also confirmed it. Celestria immediately closed her book back and got out of the seat. Celestria didn't believe it at all and thought it was absurd. In Celestria's opinion, it would not be possible for a saint to turn good without any reason. Celestria was very curious about what the aspic Jelly was actually hiding. Celestria must find out all this well. Celestria, as a new saint, will conduct an investigation in this matter. She will not want to be silent when she finds out Jelly becomes a good saint. The atmosphere of the aspic residence during the day. Jelly is in the library alone. Jelly took and read one of the books. Jelly complained and worried because she could not use any saint powers when she wanted to cure Emma. But this body belongs to a saint, so it should be possible. Jelly has been reading a lot since before, but unfortunately none of the reading makes sense in her head. Even though he was only holding a book, and there were pictures in it to illustrate the illustrations. Aaron did not forget to visit Jelly in the library and gave her a tea drink. Aaron asked Jelly to rest for a while and drink this. Jelly thanked her because this was a good idea. Jelly also can't wait to have lunch. Aaron brought some food. Jelly, who had been lethargic, came back excited again. There was a food that made Jelly curious about its name. Aaron explained that it was a sandwich. Jelly doesn't like salads. Meat can be sandwiched with sandwiches and eaten together. Especially when reading a book, Jelly can hold the food too. Jelly couldn't wait to eat the sandwich in one bite. The taste would be mixed if Jelly ate it all at once. The taste of this sandwich is really very good. Jelly praises the human idea that is never ending. Aaron saw that Jelly was eating very well. Aaron prepares tea for Jelly to drink. When pouring the tea, it suddenly falls onto the table. Jelly immediately panicked to see it. Jelly made sure Aaron's hand was not badly blistered. Aaron apologizes for the accident. She will prepare the tea again. But Jelly couldn't bear to see Aaron's hands exposed to hot water. Aaron feels fine and has no problem with this little incident, but Jelly will check Aaron's reddened hand. Jelly will try to treat the pain in Aaron's hand. Instantly, the pain in Aaron's hand immediately decreased a little. Aaron was very grateful to Jelly for all this kindness. Aaron was sure this was a miracle of her saint's power. Jelly doesn't want to be praised too much. She thinks this is just ordinary healing. In her heart, Jelly really didn't expect to be able to use the healing method so well. Will's servant came to see Jelly. When Jelly saw her, she asked how Will was doing with Emma's condition now. Will give good news that Emma is now cured. Emma is also starting to learn to walk slowly. Jelly is happy to hear the good news of Emma's sister who is getting better. The maid will return to praise that all this is thanks to the power of the saint. Jelly in her heart said this was the power of being a slime. Jelly has been feeling guilty for not immediately handling Emma's sister when she was seriously ill. Will is curious what Aaron and Jelly are doing. Aaron said that her hand was a little burned. Then Jelly healed Aaron's hand with her strength. Will's servant was curious and examined Aaron's hand. The maid will say this is just Aaron's feeling. Aaron herself has not seen the real power of Miss Jelly. When she heard Will's words, Aaron immediately screamed in shock. For Aaron, this is impossible. The pain in her hand can just disappear. The maid Will and Aaron seemed to have a small argument because of this. Jelly felt that she was almost caught. Now Jelly can use her powers. Even Will knew about saint powers like common knowledge, a fact that this Jelly does not know anything even though she is a saint. So Jelly doesn't want her to be stolen. The next step Jelly will ask Will. When Will and Aaron were still arguing, he asked Jelly whether to use the power of saint or not. Jelly explained that she didn't use it. She was happy to see that Will was quite understanding. The Will servant is honored by the praise from Jelly, but Will feels very strange if he doesn't know anything about the power of saint, even though Aaron is Jelly's personal servant. She explained that Aaron was new to this place, so it was very natural not to know anything. Jelly asked Will to use this opportunity to give a brief explanation. Will gladly explain to Aaron. A saint is a person who maintains peace in the land. Saints not only heal wounds and diseases. Saints can also identify the source of infection. A saint can manage any protector who guards the city from the danger of monsters. Sometimes saints will be recruited as a medical team when there is a big war. In short, the power of saint is the power to maintain the peace of the country and its people. The explanation given by Will is true. From now on, Jelly wants to be a saint like that from now on. Jelly believes she can do the same thing as the power of saint. Of course, that way will be assisted by using the power of slime. If all this happens, then Jelly can ensure that everyone will not hate her. Jelly is also sure that her life as a human being will be even safer. The most important thing is the risk of Jelly's original identity, namely slime. If her true identity is not a human, then this will be a bad thing. Therefore, Jelly must be careful when using her abilities in crowded places. Jelly is trying to cover all this up in the best way possible. On the one hand, Jelly seems to have to learn the power of science at all costs, especially when Jelly manages to heal. Emma is a miracle that is very extraordinary. Everything Jelly does will not guarantee that everyone will not realize. There must be a time when slowly, everyone will know about this. That's what is currently in Jelly's mind. Then the maid will tell Aaron to go to the treatment room to heal her blistered tag. When she saw Will and Aaron, Jelly also didn't know who would try to kill her at any time. Aaron rushes out and will go to the treatment room to quickly heal her hand. After Aaron left, Jelly wanted to ask Will something serious. Will once said that Emma was saved when she could complete her orders. Jelly is so curious who the client of the Will is. Honestly, Will only knows him as a man in a black robe, Jellia wants to know why Will can believe in people like that. Will himself realized he had darkened his eyes when he saw Emma's worsening condition. In addition, the man in the black robe showed Will a miracle in the form of the resurrection of a dead bird. Seeing that extraordinary thing, Will immediately believed quickly without questioning many things, even though it's just a normal thing by using tricks. But Will has been persuaded by the sweet promise of the man in the black robe so that he can save his sister by killing Miss Jelly. It turns out that Jelly has been a lot of enemies, even more than imagined by Slime. Jelly asked if there was anyone else she could talk to about this. When asked about it, the Will servant immediately gave a paper to Jelly. This letter is from a saint named Celestria. The maid will see Jelly very confused. He is sure that Jelly does not remember it well. Jelly pretends to think that she will remember it well, in her mind using Jelly's old body. Immediately drawn in Jelly's memory, the figure of Celestria. Her body is like a child. Jelly will open the letter given by this Celestria when reading the contents about the invitation to the tea banquet. The maid will be very surprised to hear it. Jelly also doesn't know why he is acting like that, when he knew that the one who invited him was a saint. Then Jelly is sure Celestria knows how to use the power of a saint. With confidence, Jelly is sure that Celestria will teach her and can get along as friends. Jelly returned to give her invitation letter again. On this occasion, Jelly will be present and meet Celestria. The maid will really look shocked, without waiting for a long time according to the scheduled event. Jelly, accompanied by Will be present to meet Celestria. Jelly uses a carriage to go there alone. When entering the carriage, Jelly felt happy to be a nobleman. When leaving, you don't have to bother walking on your own feet because someone will deliver you. However, Jelly's curiosity about Will's shock reaction earlier made her wonder. Jelly doesn't know what kind of figure this Celestria is. Maybe she is a scary saint. Inside the carriage, Jelly asked the reason why he came with her too. For Will, he did this for security. Will's servants have seen for themselves that the potential threat to Jelly is very high. Will feels uneasy letting Jelly travel alone because the dangers everywhere are so tense. Will himself came, of course, with a good intention. Even though there will be danger, Will's life will be ready to be at stake. So, during this trip, Will asked she to calm down and enjoy all this well. Will's maid gave a sandwich to Jelly while waiting for the destination to arrive. Jelly said that if something happened to him, then Sister Emma would be furious. Plus, more anxiety in Jelly's heart. She was afraid that her secret would be revealed if she was too often with Will. But Will said his duty as a servant must be able to do his best. Jelly and Will are still on a long journey, while eating sandwiches in the carriage. She remembers something about Jelly's previous figure. Jelly used to be too psychopathic, so the view of the saint is a little creepy. But as said by Will, Saint is actually a very good human being. Jelly doesn't know if she can be good friends with other saints or not. Jelly and Will have traveled by carriage. They finally arrived at Saint Celestria's place. The guards welcomed the arrival of Saint Jelly and his servants. Today, Jelly is really very excited to do her best. Jelly's thoughts today are so positive. In front of Jelly, there is Saint Celestria. When she saw her, she was very happy because she could have a meeting. Celestria feels happy because Jelly can get here safely without any danger, especially when the trip is so tired. Celestria invited Jelly to immediately sit at the outdoor meeting place. A special meal was immediately served to Jelly. She did not expect that Celestria and her maid really gave a good welcome. The maid thanked Jelly for patiently waiting for her tea. Jelly can't wait to try the food in this place. Moreover, Jelly immediately praised the presentation of the food so beautifully. Seeing Jelly's behavior, Celestria was immediately annoyed and cynical. The maid who is still beside Jelly. This woman's maid is very happy and appreciates the praise given. Moreover, Jelly's words were so kind and polite. The maid explained that this time there was an apple pie menu. Jelly observed the behavior of the Celestria maid. This shows that the maid's reaction shows that she knew about Jelly before. The maid immediately cut the apple pie so that Jelly could easily eat it. Celestria asks Jelly not to hesitate to eat this apple pie. Jelly can eat as much as she wants. In this first look at Jelly, it turns out that Celestria has considerable confidence. It seemed like they were both about the same time, while the maid was busy cutting Jelly's piece of apple pie and putting it on a plate. Jelly was sure that she and Celestria would become friends. Although they had previously known each other, Pay Apple is ready to be eaten by Jelly. In front of Jelly, this pie apple is really very tempting. The smell of apple pie is so fragrant in the nose. Maybe this pie is delicious just based on the smell alone. Jelly took the fork and then split the apple pie to eat. Jelly also noticed the atmosphere outside the courtyard where Celestria lived. Moreover, there is a nice fountain beside it. The idea of making a home page like this is really a dream. A place like this can prove that humans are the best race on Earth. So, slimes don't need to feel sorry to be human. Despite being in the body of an evil person, the apple pie eaten by Jelly was really very delicious. Celestria just stood still and watched Jelly with astonishment. Until when Jelly was still eating, Celestria looked at her face with an unpleasant look. Jelly is just silent and ordinary. In her heart, Jelly, her identity will be revealed if she doesn't take any action. Jelly said all the dishes given were so delicious, but Celestria was still cynical. After drinking tea, Celestria told Jelly to stop doing terrible things. Celestria was furious why Jelly did not show her true identity. Hearing these words, the tea that was drunk was spontaneously spouted. Jelly asked Celestria what identity she meant. Celestria continued. She felt that she had not misjudged, because Jelly's actions and behavior were very different from before. Celestria wanted to know what Jelly would do in a world like this. Jelly remained calm, now knowing that Celestria was talking about the real Jelly. Quickly, Jelly answered that he was very grateful for his saint training. Celestria is still silent and continues to observe Jelly. While here, Jelly's guess was wrong. Although Jelly wants to have a good conversation with Celestria, still, Jelly's self does not look good in her eyes. Celestria was going to talk about the saints. Celestria had heard rumors that she had cured diseases with the power of saints, so Celestria wanted to make sure it was true. For Celestria, this is hard to believe. Jelly began to understand because Celestria seemed very curious about Emma's healing. Celestria immediately denied it because it was completely pointless. In terms of healing, Jelly feels very happy and valuable. Jelly said that she really did provide healing for Emma. Celestria asked Will if what Jelly said was true. The Will servant confirmed that it was a fact. Knowing that, Celestria immediately clenched her hands and felt uneasy and restless. Celestria did not believe in this at all, although Jelly was always laughing. But Celestria was not sure that Jelly acted like a saint. But now Jelly has reformed due to the saint training that has been carried out. If indeed this change comes from the saint training, Celestria in her heart was so excited to know what things were done. Celestria would ask this to Jelly directly. In saint training, Celestria believes there must be something special during the training. Jelly made a fake answer. She said the extraordinary goddess told her. After that, Jelly immediately laughed, because she meant Lumiere as the goddess who told her how to become human. Celestria doesn't want to hear if Jelly has had a revelation. Instantly, Jelly was shocked to hear this. Jelly immediately said yes, because it was the same as getting a revelation. Now, Jelly has made a reformation, namely changing past deeds and serving humans well now. Especially Jelly will provide services to the people. This statement made Celestria not stop dumbfounded. Celestria had an annoyed look on her face because she felt jealous of Jelly's achievements. Celestria looked upset and excited because of this. Jelly didn't know if she had made a mistake because of this. According to Celestria, if Jelly had a revelation, Jelly can control all saints and deal with difficulties. Jelly has a goddess sanctuary as a beacon for humans. Jelly casually drank the tea and listened carefully to Celestria's explanation. After explaining well, Celestria suddenly wanted to leave temporarily. Later, Celestria will talk privately with Jelly. When walking away from Jelly, Celestria was so upset. According to Celestria, it was impossible for Jelly to get a revelation because it was an impossibility. Jelly was still busy eating apple pie. She had tried to stay calm under any circumstances. After Celestria arrived in the room, Celestria really felt that she did not accept this fact. Then she would do hard work every day. Celestria always prayed to give alms to disadvantaged people. Then Celestria also healed the sick. But the goddess sided with Jelly to the point of giving her a revelation. Celestria's body and soul were so unhappy when Jelly got the revelation. Due to feeling upset, Celestria's hands hit the wall hard to vent her frustration. When she was alone and no one accompanied her, Celestria thought it was a trap to deceive her. Someone like Jelly was unlikely to get a revelation. Celestria would not let herself be humbled by Jelly. Surely when Jelly felt that she was getting better, then she would laugh over the suffering of others. But this time Celestria would not allow this to happen smoothly. Celestria can't wait until when Jelly will pretend to reform into a kind person, whereas the original of Jelly is as a very creepy woman. Jelly likes to give torture and other punishments to the hoverers who work in her house Aspic. Celestria will find fault with Jelly. She really will not give a tolerance that involves God for the sake of a lie. From now on, Celestria already had a plan to uncover all of this. When he was alone and no one was watching Jelly outside, Jelly saw that the plate containing the apple pie had run out due to her eating a lot. Jelly felt panic because it was bad if she spent all this. Jelly is confused about what he should do seeing all the food has been finished, not the slightest remainder. Jelly was still waiting for Celestria, who was on business, when alone the maid came while carrying a vase of flowers. The maid said she had chosen the best flowers. When Jelly saw the flower was beautiful and interesting shape, the maid's hand shook to give the flowers to Jelly. Maybe the maid was still afraid because she knew Jelly's true nature, but Jelly still tried to be good. With a sweet smile, Jelly thanked her for the flowers. Seeing Jelly smile, the maid was very surprised because she rarely saw this. Celestria came and apologized for making Jelly wait long enough. The maid, after giving the flower, immediately left. Jelly doesn't matter, because since then she has been looking at this beautiful flower. While sitting, Celestra in her heart said she would soon reveal the true character of Jelly. No matter how Jelly pretends to reform, Jelly is still a person who likes other people's mistakes. Celestria spoke to Jelly about a rumor. Currently, the slums are shrinking. Celestria wanted to know if Jelly had heard it. Jelly shouted and said it was a slum. Jelly's brain was working to remember everything. It does take a while to remember all this. Slums are usually neighborhoods where weak humans live. Just because they are human means not everyone can live happily. Jelly began to reflect on that. Celestria saw Jelly's face look brooding like someone holding sadness. Celestria saw that Jelly never had a reaction like a compassionate person to the slums. Jelly would help the weak people who were left behind. She herself felt that she couldn't bear to see humans suffer. Furthermore, Jelly asked Celestria what happened to the humans in the slum. Celestria thought that most of the people living in the slums would be thrown out. This really reminded Jelly of the past, precisely when Jelly was expelled from his habitat. This bad experience tells a deep wound for slime. Jelly's tears could no longer be held back and dripped and soaked her cheeks. Celestria, who saw it, was even more surprised. Celestria did not think that Jelly would cry only for weak people. Celestria wanted Jelly to relax because it was just a rumor. So the truth cannot be ascertained. Jelly broke down crying in front of Celestria. Jelly convinced Celestria whether it was just a rumor. Celestria assured that it was indeed a rumor. Celestria's feelings are getting stranger and more confused by Jelly's behavior. For her, while knowing Jelly, Celestria has never seen a reaction like this. The changes in Jelly really changed 100%. Celestria conveyed a different note again. Celestria was so surprised that Jelly came to her tea party. Celestria had assumed that Jelly would not like this meeting. Jelly just remembered that that was why the maid would act strange and surprised. Previously, Jelly had always refused to have meetings. When she heard that, Jelly didn't want to remember it anymore. Now Jelly came as a form of mutual respect for each other. From now on, Jelly will consider Celestria as a friend of a fellow saint who is equal. With a sharp gaze, Celestria drank tea while looking at Jelly. The servant asked if she would take more tea to drink. Celestria allowed the servant to do so. The servant returned to make more tea to serve to the master and Miss Jelly's guests. While making tea, something suddenly happened to the maid. The teapot and tea glass bounced. Jelly, who saw it, was so shocked and panicked. When Celestria wanted to dodge away, the teapot containing hot water will slide and hit her body. Quickly, Jelly immediately saved Celestria from the hot water that would bounce. Some of the hot water hit Jelly's body. Celestria immediately made sure whether Jelly was okay because she was willing to protect herself. Jelly just smiled because he would be fine. Celestria was immediately angry with the maid for not being careful when making tea. The maid immediately apologized for her mistake that had made a mistake. Jelly grinned. For her, this was not a big deal. So Celestria didn't need to scold the maid. Jelly immediately pointed out that the maid was surprised because of the leaf caterpillar. So everyone was surprised, and spontaneously became like this. Jelly explained that leaf caterpillars like this will one day become beautiful butterflies. Then later it can develop and fly. Jelly really believes in this possibly disgusting caterpillar. For her, there is nothing wrong with having slum housing in the corner of a beautiful city. Celestria was only silent and dumbfounded at these words. Even humans in the slums would one day be able to create delicious food. Even better if they can create fun games. In this life, the wheel keeps turning and there is no telling what the future will bring. Like this pillar caterpillar which will be able to become another animal. Jelly strongly believes in the power of humans so powerful. The butterflies that were there immediately approached Jelly's body. When she saw Jelly say wise words, Celestria was very upset. Celestria asked Jelly to sit down and she obeyed. Celestria wants Jelly to be able to focus when sitting. Celestria will use her power to heal Jelly's hand that was hit by hot water earlier. Jelly was very surprised by Celestria's behavior that would heal her hand. Instantly, Jelly's hand that was hit by hot water immediately healed quickly. The first time Jelly saw the power of the saint was indeed very unusual. Celestria is a saint who is already an expert in her field. Jelly raised her hand and was no longer sore. After healing Jelly, Celestria apologized. Jelly didn't want to see Celestria begging to apologize. Instead, in this case, it was Jelly who thanked her for healing her. Spontaneously for Celestria's kindness, Jelly wanted to invite her to become a long-term friend. Celestria in her mind did not expect Jelly to be like an ideal saint who received a revelation. Celestria will accept the offer to be friends depending on Jelly's attitude. Later, Celestria will think about it as long as Jelly continues to act as a saint. Jelly will promise this. While talking, the maid will come and say, "Excuse me." Will said that the carriage had arrived and would take them both to return to the Aspic house. Jelly immediately stroked Celestria's head. Then she said goodbye to leave now. Jelly said many thanks for everything Celestria had done. All Celestria workers were so surprised to see Jelly's treatment very well, and even stroked her head. Jelly and Will have entered the carriage and waved goodbye to Celestria. Celestria became upset because she was treated as a child by Jelly. In the carriage, Jelly just remembered that Celestria was not angry because it had all been eaten. For Jelly, Celestria is a kind-hearted girl. In the carriage, Jelly brings a leaf and a small caterpillar as a gift.